Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about What If Deku Was Stark's Conscience Part 4. If you guys enjoy this What If and want to see Part 5, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story 𝗵𝗲 𝗧𝗵𝗲 from Wattpad. So let's start the video. League of Villains Shigaraki had thought about his goals. Originally, the death of All Might would have worked. His strategy was sound. How do you beat something like All Might? Use something with resistance to bludgeoning damage. How do you handle that much strength? 𝗔𝗂𝗁. He thought himself as a pro attacking a lobby of noobs. Then he came against some 𝗕𝗏𝗏 who bought the DLC. Someone who had reduced his perfect creation into a paste. Someone who they couldn't figure the F out who it was. That red and gold armor had shown up before. Saving that blonde NPC from that sludge encounter. Iron Man. Recovered phone recordings the League had obtained from various NPCs. 𝗬𝗏𝗵𝗲 𝗔𝗂𝗁, a promising candidato recruit. Currently I was watching the hero killer stand off against her, Ingenium version 2 handsome green dude. Izuku Midoriya. It was only when the image from the USJ attack and the glowing light under the jacket had Shigaraki made the connection. Holy sholy FSHT. This wasn't an NPC. This had to be a mini-boss. An endgame one. His Regan had outlasted Endeavor's perfect creation and paired with some kind of metal bone created a broken combo. But then he had gotten the fact this person was quirkless. Dr. Kyudai, one of Father's lackeys, had the file on him. Toe joint and everything. A 4th gen quirkless. An F-rank spawn standing up to a A rank like Stain. From how he had moved, his goals were just like video game logic. If you can't fight them, run till you're out of their aggro range. His mission was rescue the engine quirk NPC. Fighting Stain was a side objective to him. What do you mean he attacked you? The blonde one shouted, being held back by the quirkless one. I mean exactly as I've said. He came here shouting how he'd avenge his brother. Stain said. The look on the green one's face had shown it all. A rage dwarfing his loss at the USJ like a matchstick to a star. But unlike Shigaraki, this one seemed to hold the same self-control as father. Rage made plebs quit. But for 𝐿33 it got SHT done. Ingenium. The only reason his voice was picked up was cause of the long-range listening tool that was being used to watch over the encounter. But no raised voice. No tone in voice. But Shigaraki could feel it. He had angered father before, surprisingly not from the USJ. Apparently All for One expected him to fail. It was your first actual attack. Every mission is perfect until it actually gets there. But this was definitely something Shigaraki had known. Just thinking about it made him feel itchy. But aimed at someone else. No wonder people wanted siblings. That disc was removed from his arm and put on the blonde's arm. Don't move. Stain's reaction to this order was an eyebrow raise. He didn't move from his ready stance, but he didn't move either. I can take dash, Canon won't. The sheer authority was enough to get Kurogiri to flinch. We are still within the rules when the heroes show to not get expelled. If we attack, we lose everything. Oh, did you not just use a quirk to save your friend? Stain asked. No, I didn't. The quirkless one said. A hand had touched something on the inner part of the shield and another hologram emitted from it. A kite shield that was big enough to guard the full body instead of a simple circle. A kite shield that was big enough to guard the full body instead of a simple circle. It's not a quirk. And the laws say as long as Cat or me don't attack, we can't get in trouble. He said with a narrow glance at the blonde. You are within your right to attack Ida in self-defense. That won't get you off from the 18 heroes you killed and 23 you've crippled. 17 killed. Stain corrected. 18. One of them was 𝗵𝗃𝗏. The green one said. Oh. Well, though I don't regret cutting out that cancer, I am sorry that baby never got to take its first breath. Stain said. Oh, so the serial killer has a soft spot for babies. 𝗏𝗃𝗏 said mockingly. Fakes can prove they are until they can actually prove it. The green one and Stain said in unison. Oh ho, so you admit there is a cancer in society. Stain said. As I've said. The quirkless one had grabbed Ingenium too and was looking at the injury, As the guy who's cured cancer, I'm probably the one here who can say with 100% sincerity, you don't cure cancer by just cutting things out. You're treating a symptom, don't the actual problem. When the armor torso piece had been torn like paper, the bleeding wound was exposed. A finger tapped something under his sleeve and a red glove appeared on his hand. It's not exactly nanoparticles, but this is basically what it looks like, just the gauntlet and it's under the jacket. It's not exactly nanoparticles, but this is basically what it looks like, just the gauntlet and it's under the jacket. I wanted to use this GIF instead of the watch one since Izuku isn't attacking here. Stain flinched and the blonde tensed. Shigaraki had seen 2 ports open at the fingers of the gauntlets and they were brought to the wound. The NPC had sighed as the blue spray did something. The NPC had sighed as the blue spray did something. Probably some kind of stimpak. What is that? Stain asked, pointing. Liquid bandage spray. The quirkless one said, disinfectant and artificial fibrin net to speed up recovery while minimizing work for the platelets. It's basically this pink net thing mixed with a chemical mix that instead of just sticking cells to it in a basic clot, it actually absorbs the cells into a perfect wall. It's basically this pink net thing mixed with a chemical mix that instead of just sticking cells to it in a basic clot, it actually absorbs the cells into a perfect wall. The whole thing can make a standard stab wound that would take a week to properly seal, speed to the rate as a paper cut, and prevents major scarring. Holy SHT, a real stimpak. Shigaraki thought. Stain had seemed interested in it. Interesting. So you said you cured cancer. Haven't heard anything about that in the news. Believe me, pal, if I had the option to release it now and tell cancer to go hang itself, I would, but unlike you, I have to be careful or it will get confiscated by people who will charge out the butt for it. The green one said, adjusting Ingenium 2 into a sitting position. So you've legit found a cure. Like, no bullshit, a serious fix for cancer. Stain asked. Yes. And I'd like you to please keep it to yourself. I just need to get enough made and enough people to get the shot so no one can cover it. The green one said, it can go a lot farther in my hands than in the hands of others. Really? So you intend to make it for free? Stain asked. What, am I a communist? Quirkless asked. I'm gonna charge for it, obviously. But definitely a lot less than if it was in the hands of Japan Medical Association, and certainly not as much if the American Medical Association. I can tell you it will cost at least $5,000 if it was sold by JMA. I can sell it at $500 for a single injection that will completely fix the problem permanently and still make a profit with that price tag. What company do you work for again? Katsumi asked. I own Stark Industries. He said. How much does the injection cost to make? About $250 if you factor in the price of needles. Quirkless said, but we're working on mass production so the price would be low as $100 to make. A fair markup for a cure to cancer, diabetes and AIDS. Wait, you've cured AIDS? Yes. The green-haired boy had been getting irritated at the questions. If it's genetics related, I've found the cure. And you're here standing in my way, in the hero course instead of in a lab. Why? 'Cause that's what heroes do. Izuku said, we aren't military or police. Heroes started out as volunteers. When there was no villains to fight, they helped in other ways. I clean public parks and work on non-hero related tech on my free time. Yes. Stain shouted with a smile, you aren't a fake like Ingenium or the others, yes. Stain shouted with a smile, you aren't a fake like Ingenium or the others. A true hero. Just like All Might. You diamond villain. Katsumi growled out, but a cough had stopped her. You're right about Ingenium. What? The 3 in the alley and even Shigaraki had said. Luckily the villain was on a rooftop far from hearing range. Ingenium treated the job as a normal 9 to 5. Izuku said, pinching his nose, I know it's hard to hear, but your brother didn't hold the job as he should have. But my family, your family have done good, Ida, but no one is perfect. The quirkless one said, a hero's job is similar to a paramedic, not a retail worker. You don't get paid by the hour you're on call and need to be ready at a moment's notice. You notice how All Might is often seen in just pants and a t-shirt. He's usually just going about his day and jumps in when he sees danger. And how do you expect someone like my brother to be ready at all times? A mask. Izuku said, A basic ski mask can do the job of your suit. Your suit doesn't have anything that is mandatory for your hero work. Endeavor wears his costume under his civilian clothes. My suit is well, that's not important. Rapid response is critical in emergencies. He gestured between the group of students and the hero killer to emphasize his point. You sure know your SHT kid. Tell me, what about that fake MT lady? Stain asked. No, she's not. Green said. Oh really? Bakugo asked, but Quantance doesn't convince me of that. Stain snapped his fingers and pointed to Bakugo. She gets it? A 50-foot-tall fake. Do you know how much a suit that can expand that big costs? The quirkless one asked. Heroes that need costumes of more exotic materials have to take sponsors or they have to do the job naked. Now I don't have a problem, but look me in the eye and tell me you expect someone to face people like you butt naked. Stain rubbed his chin. You know, that is very good point. He muttered. Suddenly a flash of blue light and the ringing of metal stopped the conversation. A backhanded slap to the currently paralyzed students echoed through the alley. What the F were you thinking? His shouts were audible even as far out to their location on the roof. Meanwhile, Aizawa and Shinso stalked a group of criminals to an arms deal going on top of a rooftop. Okay, there are 8. 3 have guns. Aizawa reached into his belt and pulled out a black rectangle. Plan? Shinso asked. Aizawa pointed to the crate. If they get scared, they'll run for the crate. Stay here and watch. Shinso watched as her mentor had ran rooftop to rooftop, finally getting to the roof with the villains. The block was stuck to the crate with something shot from Aizawa's wrist. The noise had drawn them closer together, and that was when he had pounced from above. Had gone down in seconds before the others could get close enough. A flash of blue was the only indicator of Aizawa doing anything. Had gone down in seconds before the others could get close enough. A flash of blue was the only indicator of Aizawa doing anything. Get him. Rushed forward armed with knives and pipes. Rushed forward armed with knives and pipes. A drop of a smoke pellet and the sounds of fists hitting flesh had sent the last guy running for the crate. When the smoke cleared, Aizawa was standing with 3 of them webbed up and the 4th in his capture rope. The second that crate was touched, the goon was blasted into a wall. Holy SHT, Shinso said under her breath. A whistle had gestured her to come over. Shinso had taken the stairs, arriving in time for Aizawa to have them all tied up. The cops are on the way. Aizawa said, we got 5 minutes to do our own questioning cause I really don't feel like wasting time. I don't know who the F you are, but you vigilantes are effing brain dead to call the fuzz. Oh, I'm a registered hero. Eraserhead said. This is my apprentice. Hey, Shinso said. You can say dash. The thug's eyes went glossy. Tell us where the weapons are coming from and who you work for. Shinso ordered. The weapons are imported from some Shina BSTRDS. The thug said, the Yakuza are buying from everyone and at a good price. Tells us where the next shipment is. Don't know. Don't ask. Aizawa looked through all the devices he took from the thugs and took out each card, putting them into a weird device. What's that? Shinso asked. Aizawa held up a finger. After the cops arrived, were given a statement and left with a tip of the cap. Aizawa showed what he had. After the cops arrived, were given a statement and left with a tip of the cap. Aizawa showed what he had. This is a cryptographic sequencer. It can digitally copy a SIM card. This is for tracking and recon only. No using it to spy on an X or stealing money. Aizawa said. So what now? Now we keep patrolling and let the Hero Association's white hats deal with keeping an ear out for any contacts. Aizawa said. All Might, after his call with the police chief had ended, Toshinori saw he got a message. SH to Ida. FFF, the message said. Jarvis, what is Midoriya doing at the moment? All Might asked. HUD displaying now, sir. And you think your family dash? All Might had hit mute on the video. Jarvis, where is Midoriya? All Might asked. Hosu City. Call in the suit. Toshinori said, rushing outside. Toshinori said, rushing outside. Endeavor Agency Inko. Endeavor and Shoko were on a patrol when Shoko's phone went off. It's from Izuku. Shoko said, it just says, Stain Ida. Stain. The other 2 shouted. Where is the boy? Endeavor ordered. Shoko dialed a number. Hey Jarvis. Hello Miss Todoroki. Why did Midoriya send this? Sir's panic mode had sent out a text. Apologies for the confusion, the feature is in testing phase. Panic mode. Inko asked, where is Izuku? Personnel does not have authorization. Tell me where he is. Endeavor shouted. Personnel does not have authorization. Van you tell me where he is? Shoko asked. Personnel does not have authorization. I'll have you fired if you don't tell me where he is. Endeavor shouted. Can you call him please? Shoko asked. Calling, Shoko. The panicked voice on the phone said. Izuku, what's going on? Inko asked. I'm in an alley with Katsumi and Ida currently at a standoff with Stain. Izuku said. Stain. The three shouted. Endeavor grabbed the phone. Where are you? Hosu City. Izuku said. They're so goddamn it. What is it? What is it? Nomu's. Izuku said. The call ended and Endeavor growled, throwing the phone in anger. 45% charge. Endeavor looked at it when Shoko picked it up and saw it wasn't broken. Where did you get that? I bought it from Midoriya. Shoko said. Okay, seriously, I need to look into your kid's company. Endeavor said. No time for that, we need to hurry. Momo the patrol was eventful. They had stopped 2 villains and Midnight had given her words of wisdom. Something I've wondered about. Momo said, the heels. Oh, these are called cat heels. They may look like regular heels, but they are actually reinforced. Metal coated in a RBB composite. They won't break and I can't roll an ankle. Oh, I thought you just had that good of balance. Oh, sweetie, these came out 5 years ago. Midnight said, I've been in the game for 10. The sound of a crash followed by a roar had drawn their attention. Rounding a corner they had seen a towering figure. Rounding a corner they had seen a towering figure. Bo said. Anyway, time for the story. The human species are monsters. You had put up a fight long ago but were crushed under the boot of the Forerunners, but 1 million years, a single mega-annum, had not only climbed back to your former glory, you have outstepped the very creatures that have killed your original race. Yeah. We're pretty awesome. A woman who can alter temperature at will, one who can create anything with only a knowledge of how it functions, one that can produce enough explosive material to keep an army fueled, one that can produce acids that can break even our greatest materials, and a woman who can manipulate the very gravitons that keep the universe together. All having a degree of intelligence, strength and power far beyond your own. You are the one that scares the rest of the universe. It's called swinging above your bracket. When the world sees you as a bug, you can be an ant or a hornet. If I hadn't checked myself, I'd have sworn you were Faber. He was such a, I believe your species call it, a romantic. We cling to things we cherish the most. My heart and my 𝐒𝐻𝑎s hold them close. I pray the universe allows me to raise my children in a world I produce. Would you give your pursuit of space for them? Give. Put back. Maybe. Do I need to? No. May, Momo and Melissa can be just as capable of being the mothers of my empire as the mothers of my children. Our children will play in the shade of trees we plant on planets we build the foundation of. Well then, it's unfortunate the 𝐒𝐻𝑎s hasn't reactivated in their current body. It's astounding that the collective biological material from a grave world would create a species immune to flood. A nervous system immune to the pattern transfer that has been a constant of all life in the universe and the foundation of Forerunner society. I will admit my disappointment in my husband's 𝐒𝐻𝑎s being overpowered by yours and my own being partially blocked by May. I'm not. You aren't upset that a union old enough spanning countless decades in hundreds of bodies can't have the memories retrieved? Of course not. We started with nothing and built what we have. As the living universe wills. Every moment we share is a new experience. Progression instead of stagnation. I get to fall in love all over again. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Well, if you insist on repeating the courtship, then I am First Lightweave's living song, head of the life worker rate and wife of the 𝐸𝐸. Well, if you insist on repeating the courtship, then I am First Lightweave's living song, head of the life worker rate and wife of the 𝐸𝐸. My name's Izuku Midoriya, founder and CEO of Stark Industries, The guy who killed your husband and is plowing your 𝐎𝐻𝑒𝐈𝐵 current body in the butt over a workbench. Yes, I'm still experiencing that. You could use more lube, you know. It would make the experience less uncomfortable. Where's the fun in that? Ali Izuku had been panting after finishing his speech. 𝗔𝗂𝗵𝗲 Katsumi said. Stain was clapping his hands with a SHT eating grin on his face. Glorious. The only word for it. Cat, we're leaving, Izuku said, grabbing Ida. Izuku turned to Stain. As much as I would love to turn you into your namesake, we aren't on duty and you haven't made any attempt to attack me or her, so I suggest you leave. Stain had actually burst out laughing. Izuku had pulled Ida towards the street when something had swooped down and grabbed him. Izuku had pulled Ida towards the street when something had swooped down and grabbed him, for the winged creature had latched onto his shoulder and flew away. Deku/Midoriya. Stain just raised an eyebrow. Rooftop Quirkless had unzipped his jacket and fell down. Jets in his shoes had broke his fall as he had fired off a blast into the Nomu's face. Landing on his feet, gloves smoking and a glare on his face. You owe me a new jacket. The winged creature turned and screeched at him. The jacket still in its talons and currently focused solely on the mini-boss. Does the Nomu actually have some old memories? Shigaraki asked, looking to his caretaker, who had actually shrugged. The glove had a twin in the form of an armband that formed into another gauntlet. 𝗵𝗲 just pulled a pair of Assassin's Creed blades and spit at the beast. The blades are these, I just like the GIF, they give the story more action for me to write better. The blades are these, I just like the GIF, they give the story more action for me to write better. If you insist staying here, mind helping carve this turkey? No, I'm fine watching this. Stain said. Cat. The green-haired one said, Go, this is personal. The confusion on her face was evident. You don't recognize him. The green-haired one seemed to know who this Nomu was. It's Tsubasa, he shouted. The blonde blinked. The kid we used to be friends with. Blink. Kentucky Fried Fat Ass. Oh, she said, I don't think I've ever know that guy's name. Just get him out of the alley. Stain hasn't made a move yet. The green-haired one said. What's it gonna be? You gonna be a real hero or another fake? Stain said, grinning fingers. What's it called when your fingers do this when holding an object? What's it gonna be? You gonna be a real hero or another fake? Stain said, grinning fingers. What's it called when your fingers do this when holding an object? The blonde took a step towards Stain but grit her teeth. 𝗓𝗵𝗲. She shouted, twisting and bolting towards the street. Hooking an arm around the other's arm, she dragged him out. Stain had started to move, but the mini-boss had sliced off the Nomu's left wing with one arm, knifed it in the ribs and slammed it into the wall in front of Stain. Elsewhere, Aizawa, Shinso, Midnight and Momo were currently surrounded by burning buildings, screaming civilians, and the Nomu. Nomu, Momo said. You've seen this thing before. Shinso shouted. In the USJ attack. Momo said. Okay, so we can fight it right. Hopefully. Aizawa said, time to test the new perks. Closing his eyes, the light started becoming visible through the cracks. Closing his eyes, the light started becoming visible through the cracks. Was gonna use Cyclops, but I just had to use this one. The beast started to sway and Momo made a tiny missile, launching it out. A gauntlet formed on her arm. The beast started to sway and Momo made a tiny missile, launching it out. A gauntlet formed on her arm. The beast started to sway and Momo made a tiny missile, launching it out. A gauntlet formed on her arm. Okay, that was impressive. Shinso said. I don't know how long my laser effects last, so we need to contain the remains. Momo created a vacuum and Shinso was helping with looking to see if any civilians were around. Shinso had heard the vacuum container strain and pop open when it was about to be handed to the police. A notification on her helmet told her to reach for something on her belt. As soon as the beast broke out, she slammed a button on her glove and dodged, getting her head swatted off as the police car turned into a convertible. As soon as the beast broke out, she slammed a button on her glove and dodged, getting her head swatted off as the police car turned into a convertible. The giant creature was now small enough to fit in her hand. Not so tough now, she said, taunting it, but her finger was grabbed and broken. Owie! Momo caught it and formed a tungsten box around it. Good job. The cop paused. This is my protege. Midnight said, putting a hand on Momo's shoulder. I'm the everything hero, 𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏. She said. This is my apprentice. Eraserhead said. Oh, the serene hero, cicada. Shinso said. Well, congrats on the quick thinking. The cop said. That went amazing. Momo squealed when the cops left. That went amazing. Momo squealed when the cops left. 𝗓𝗏𝗃, Aizawa had turned to see Midnight, and the two baggy-eyed ones saw her acting similar. 𝗓𝗏𝗃, Aizawa had turned to see Midnight, and the two baggy-eyed ones saw her acting similar. Oh, I'm so proud of my students. Midnight said, learning from past experiences, working together, and oh, I'm so proud. I never fought one of those before. Shinso said. You can learn from your own experience or others. Aizawa said, instinctively reaching for his drops but realized his eyes still didn't hurt. You two did good tonight. Let's help the paramedics and rescue find anyone. Hey, what was that thing that shot out your arm? Momo asked. I guess this thing can shrink other stuff. Kind feel like I'm stepping on Yui's toes. Shinso said, looking down at it. I've helped Izuku and May build a rocket ship in 2 weeks and I'm still impressed. Momo said. Wait, a rocket? Shinso asked. Yes, Stark Industries is pulling its PP from the Earth and is already fingering the universe. Midnight said. Did you seriously just quote an Eminem song? Aizawa and Shinso said. Come when we don't want to stand and watch the city burn. Momo said, smiling. I think Midoriya created a monster. Aizawa pinched his nose. Well, nuclear power does seem to do that. Shinso said. It also the heart of Stark Industries. Momo said, creating a pair of thermal goggles. A gun's only a threat in the hands of an idiot. Amen. Aizawa said. Ali Katsumi hated doing nothing. She could only watch Deku try and pin fat ass down. Katsumi. A familiar voice shouted. Katsumi. A familiar voice shouted, I got a message from Izuku about Stain. Or a very confusing but call. Please be the second option. Inko said. Why don't you ask this 𝗬𝗪? Katsumi said, glaring at Ida. I'm sorry. Ida said. Did Stain attack you? Endeavor asked. No, two went after Stain. Ida said he had fallen to Endeavor's knees. I'm sorry. If I hadn't done this, Midoriya would be dash. Izuku is fighting Stain. The three shouted. No, he's fighting a Nomu. Katsumi said, he refuses to attack Stain and stopped me from trying to. A smart choice. Endeavor said, but let the number 1 take down the hero killer. Fake. The voice had sent a chill down the newcomers' backs. The voice had sent a chill down the newcomers' backs. A fake pretending he belongs at the top. Stain had advanced and Endeavor had sent a blast of heat in the path of the blade, melting it to slag. Gonna take more than that to take down the number 1 hero. F. Katsumi shouted, F. Katsumi shouted. Something was visible in the distance and Izuku grinned. Something was visible in the distance and Izuku grinned. Glad you made it to the party. Would miss it, sir. I brought a +1. You're late, you're late. Torino said. Kinda got caught up. Izuku said, gesturing to Stain and the 2 Nomus. You should have brought more than these fakes. Stain said. Sonny, I've been doing this job before it was a profession. Torino said, and don't think the boy didn't call another backup. Get away from my students, get away from my students. The second armored one flew down. Who the F is this? Endeavor shouted. That's 𝗓𝗏𝗃. Katsumi slammed a hand over Shoko's mouth. I am Iron Liberty and 𝗓𝗏𝗃. Toshinori started before his own helmet muted him from finishing that sentence. What? Stain held a hand to his ear. I said I am 𝗓𝗏𝗃. There was a pause as the eye slits glowed. The one to put you behind bars. The look from the red and gold armored figure had said it all. Beach, really. Sorry, force of habit. The winged Nomu had flew towards Izuku. Holding its jaw open, Izuku turned. Does this count as self-defense? As number 1, you are all temporarily permitted to act. Endeavor said, Mercury, you're with the Midoriyas, Girl, you're with Torino, and Iron Liberty, take the Nomu. This one's mine. Glaring at Stain. Finally, a real fight. Katsumi shouted, rushing the tall Nomu. Good job, we'll pack up for the night. You've made good progress. Gunhead said. Thank you, sensei. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 said, bowing. The ability to actually use her quirk without puking had pushed the lessons on using momentum in a fight had given 𝗬𝗏𝗁 mental whiplash from how fast things were going. I wonder how the others are doing. Mina, pedicure manicure kitty cat claws. Mina sang to herself. Mina was climbing a brick wall using small amounts of acid on her fingertips to climb. The suggestion to pick from the urban dealing heroes had been genius. You beat Shoko because you could outmaneuver her. Learning to outstep your opponent and lurk in the shadows will get the most out of your quirk. Mina had started taking his suggestion to act like a xenomorph to heart. 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐻 had spun into a crouch after taking down 2 criminals. Dark Shadow punched the final one. Good job, Hawk said. 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐻 nodded. One had gotten up and came after them with a bat. Before Hawks had moved to intercept, 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐻 raised his arm, glaring at the criminal, and when the bat connected, the criminal had dropped it as a metallic ring echoed through the night. You should have stayed down, 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐻 said, slamming his fist into his palm, causing a ringing again. The darkness has molded a champion out of one of us. And it isn't you. The villain had actually fainted. Well done, Hawks said, slapping him on the back. Dark Shadow giving a thumbs up. All right if we hold on. Hawks was cut off by his earpiece. Hell. Nomu's investigation. I'll be right there. What is it? Dark Shadow asked. They want me on the Nomu investigation. Another one was captured. Hawk said, are you good to join? I know we're here to teach, but investigations are drooling. I am here to learn what I can, 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐻 said. Back with stain, Katsumi had blasted the gray Nomu across the face. The splatter of BLD had put a smile on her face. Finally one without a shitty absorbing quirk. A flurry of palm strikes had kept its regeneration on edge. Katsumi kicked its leg, jumping into its chest and blasting it back. Torino kicked it in the face. Might wanna adjust that leg, girly. Overextension could open you up to a counter. Jumping into a chain of kicks. Katsumi followed the combo the old geezer demonstrated. A sharp whistle and a hit the deck had the old man pulling her to the ground. 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐻 was standing next to her son. Why is it targeting you? It had rushed Izuku, but 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐻 had swung, punching a hole through its chest. I think it's one of my classmates from Aldine, Izuku said, focusing on its wings and limbs, then opening his shoulder shots. We need it alive, Izuku said. Mercury. 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐻 looked over. Right. Shoko had twirled her hand and sent a shot into its chest. The ice formed around it without affecting the surrounding. Well done, Mercury. The other armored figure and her father shouted over. You're a fake Endeavor, Stain said. And you're Ashvillian. Stain had weaved through the beads of fire and got Endeavor in the side. Before his arm could bend to lick it, a glove had flew off Izuku and restrained his arms. All might, Endeavor I can dash, Toshinori started, but Endeavor had created a wall between the two. This is my fight. But dash, on your 6. May the intern with S.H.I.E.L.D. Industries had been lackluster. May had always seen S.H.I.E.L.D. as the best of the best, and they were to a point. What she learned would definitely help with her babies for 𝗧𝗵𝗲 Industries support tech, but when you were one of 2 companies building into the stars, you had to pull back. May had realized she was legitimately bored. Like she honestly had to keep herself awake. She had started thinking about the fundamentals all support department had to deal with. Fit, function, and fashion. The major pain to a majority of suits was working around a quirk. May had looked at the 4D printer Izuku had donated to the department. It wasn't new tech, but it made the whole process of getting specific parts made quicker. If you bumped it up, could you print entire costumes around someone? May had a rough design and Jarvis had put in the order. The other support students had reserved the machine, so unless Momo was back, she wouldn't be able to have anything printed. Jarvis. Yes, Miss 𝗧𝗵𝗲. What's the progress on the moon base? May asked. Stage 2 has began. Dust is currently being collected and filtered for use in printer. May leaned back. The initial payload of the rocket was a dust collector, an arc reactor, and 4 drones that had functions similar to the 4D printer. How's Project Junkyard? Deconstruction of destroyed satellites is functioning as anticipated. Micronetting have begun collecting smaller fragments for recycling. May tapped her pen. How's the jackpot? Asteroid refinery has begun breaking down raw materials of 𝗧𝗵𝗲 and Stark repulsors have been constructed. Estimated arrival 2 months, 3 weeks and 4 days. What do we do next? May groaned, it's so boring waiting. May looked and said, hey Jarvis, do you know Izuku is planning do with the material of the asteroid? Designated as to be discussed. May exhaled out her nose. Incoming call from Miss Yaoyorozu. Hello. Hey May, are you bus dash? No, what do you need? May said excited. I'm at the hospital. What? Yeah, Shinso finger got broke and when we got here Izuku was brought in. Hospital, hello. Momo said into her phone. Apologies Miss Yaoyorozu, Miss 𝗧𝗵𝗲 is currently on her way. Momo put her phone away and headed into the room where Izuku was sitting on a chair. The machine filtering his BLD running as he was being yelled at by his mother. Of all the things, why would you keep this from your own mother? Because it would solve nothing. I don't need tears, I need results. Izuku said, I'm sorry for sounding cruel or heartless, but I don't need to be surrounded by sobbing and people looking at me like I'm made of glass. Momo looked at the open spot in his chest. The metallic lines running through his veins and the yellowing of his face was horrifying. So it's my fault. That it happened. That I don't want to be around you. Izuku said, just get yourself checked. We'll talk this over after my BLD isn't full of metal. Momo looked over to the blonde bombshell of 1A who was sitting next to Izuku's suit keeping an eye on the doctor. Get yourself checked. A voice said, causing Momo to turn and see the current number 1. I'd like to talk to the boy who saved my life. Inko walked out. Would you two mind allowing me to have a private discussion with the boy? I ain't leaving this spot. Bakugo said. Shoko, who was currently wrapped in what Momo recognized as Izuku's jacket, was pouting behind him. This can wait. I agreed to go through with the offer, but it can wait till he's not hooked to a machine. May saw the once pristine Iron Liberty armor covered in dents and soot. What happened? May asked, looking between Izuku and Iron Liberty. Half an hour earlier, Endeavor, get your butt over here and get this thing. Toshinori had switched to his other voice out of frustration. No, this monster is mine. Todoroki was trying to torch the thing but had been too worried about the surrounding area. F it. Everyone get clear. We need to pin this thing. I got something. All Might retracted his gauntlet and a black tendril shot out his fingers wrapping around its limbs. Izuku flew to the other side of the Nomu and held up a palm. Ready. Plus Uttara. Stand clear. Both shouted before the whine of repulsors charged. Stand clear. Both shouted before the whine of repulsors charged. Endeavor had been thrown back. Katsumi, Shoko, Torino and Inko hiding behind the shield in Katsumi's hand had been spared getting fried. Stain was lurking, using the explosion as a distraction to jump out at the distracted Endeavor. Gah! Endeavor shouted as a knife was embedded into his shoulder. Throwing the villain into the street and removing the knife, Endeavor had a set of armor form around him and a green-haired boy had jumped in front of him. The metallic veins on the boy's chest and the hole in it was revealed. What the dash? The other armor had grabbed Stain, floating him in the air. This fight is over. Toshinori said, glaring at Stain, then turning to Endeavor. Don't bother trying to burn your way out of that. The cops are on their way and you need to chill. Stain was being held in place, facing away from everyone so he couldn't see who it was, but Endeavor recognized. All Might. The flash of lights of the police showing up. Out of one car stepped the chief of police, Kenji Tsuragami. The dog man looked at the scene and turned to Toshinori. What's going on? Toshinori had grinned. Moving his arm, the suit retraining Stain retracted the helmet. We got him. The grin on the dogman had been accompanied by a hooting cheer from the EMTs and cops. They stopped when the struggling from the red and gold suit was heard. The suit floated off. Endeavor and Toshinori immediately said, he gets credit for this. The hell, we were the ones that saved Four Eyes. Katsumi said. Before anyone takes that out of context, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 has access to the recording of what happened. Izuku said, my body cam had the whole thing and you will see me. Katsumi and Shoko have committed no crime in this instance. I need a ride to the hospital and I think 𝗕𝗏𝗲 does too. It's just a stab wound. I can give my statement before I get treated. Mercury, go with the boy. 𝗕𝗏𝗲 said, Emerald, you are dismissed for the evening. Wanna see if you're gonna stay here. Izuku said, walking over. Izuku said, walking over plus, thanks. 𝗕𝗏𝗲 said. Izuku just waved it off and trudged to the ambulance. Buckle up, folks. 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲 Midoriya had gotten a call that his kid was in the hospital. Waiting in the room were 4 college-age women who he recognized from the tournament. Izuku's homeroom teacher and the 18-plus hero. What happened to my son? 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲 asked. A nurse walked over and said, you're 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲 Midoriya, correct? Yes. Where's my son? Your son is finishing his dialysis now, but the reason you were called was something noticed by a nurse with a quirk. Follow me. Izuku. After Izuku's treatment was finished, he looked and felt better. After exiting the room, 𝗕𝗏𝗲 had asked to speak with Midoriya. Katsumi had given a look. 5 minutes. Izuku said, if I'm not out by then, burst the door in. Using a meeting room, 𝗕𝗏𝗲 bribed someone to borrow. Izuku sat down and said, I know about your plans. Yes. 𝗕𝗏𝗲 said. Look, I don't care about creating the perfect offspring. If I want that, I can just genetically augment the baby, so don't start with a long speech about why knocking up your daughter would be an advantage. Izuku said. 𝗕𝗏𝗲 had slipped a hand into his pocket, discreetly burning a prepared sheet of paper with said speech. I have 3 stipulations before any deals are made. I want to ensure any kids I bring into the world aren't put through the SHT show I've lived in. Izuku said, first and foremost, how much are you willing to pay for the 𝗕𝗏𝗵𝗲? 10 grand at 𝗕𝗏𝗵𝗲, 50 grand when the baby is born. 𝗕𝗏𝗲 offered. Is that per kid? Izuku asked. I don't see how that question is necessary. If I end up rolling doubles, you aren't getting 2 for 1. Izuku said. 𝗕𝗏𝗲 seemed to be doing the math in his head. It wouldn't be that far of a cost. Plus, what are the chances there'll be more than 1? Previously, and just a hint of armadillo DNA. Currently, we will discuss the price. Okay, now about the paperwork. Izuku said. What are your demands? 𝗕𝗏𝗲 said. I need a way out. A clause allowing me to split off from Shoko should some event happen. Izuku said, in addition to this, if this happens, I keep all my money and joint custody of the kids. 50-50, no negotiations on that. 𝗕𝗏𝗲 nodded. It wasn't an unfair request. And the second thing. The baby is mine. Izuku said, I don't care what your rank, who you are, or anything. The baby is the child of Izuku Midoriya and it will be cared for. So yes, I will help you create a perfect grandchildren, but do not think for 1 second I won't take the role of father seriously. Understandable. 𝗕𝗏𝗲 said. And I need Shoko's mother's permission. Izuku said. What? You heard me. Izuku said, I won't deprive the baby of either of its grandparents, including the maternal grandmother. I need to speak with Rei Todoroki without you present. 𝗕𝗏𝗲's flames flickered. It was silent until the door burst in. The blonde at a ready stance. I'm fine, cat. Izuku said, so we have a deal. Fine. 𝗕𝗏𝗲 said, holding out a hand with a flame on it. After a handshake, Izuku pulled out a business card. This is my lawyer. He'll be discussing the contract with your lawyer. 𝗕𝗏𝗲 accepted the card and left. What just happened? I might have to get Shoko 𝗵𝗲𝗏 soon. Izuku said. What? Katsumi shouted. Meanwhile, what? 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲 shouted, looking at the paper. Your wife is 𝗵𝗲𝗏. The doctor said. 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲 and 𝐒𝐭 had thought they had gotten lucky with Izuku. The thought of having another kid, he could actually get to be around for it. His savings was enough, he could retire and actually be around for it. Later the 4 students were all herded to a private room to speak with 2 people. The police chief and a detective named 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗂 𝗔𝗂𝗁. The police chief and a detective named 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗂 𝗔𝗂𝗁. What are we here for? Shoko asked. I demand someone be present before any proceeding. Izuku said. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 had walked in. His helmet under his arm. As their teacher, I am here as a mediator for my students. I am allowed to veto questions if I decided they are out of boundaries. That is acceptable. Kenji said, now it has come to my attention the incident was recorded. Yes, I record everything. Izuku said, so your suit caught the whole interaction? My suit does have an onboard camera. Izuku said, true. But that wasn't the question. Tsukachi said, and the actual answer to that is not something I want in police documentation. Izuku countered, I know how, and I also don't want that information disclosed. Toshinori said, very well. The chief said, pulling up the video, this video was given willingly by One Iron Liberty last night. Can you please give some details on your locations at that time? I was within 𝐕𝗲𝗏 and Emerald Esper. Shoko said, Katsumi and I were on our way here. Izuku said, true. Tsukachi said, Ida had started crying. I am sorry a hand grabbed his mouth. Izuku had silenced him, but Toshinori had spoken. Before he opens his mouth, I am to understand you all have watched the footage. All parties involved have watched the recording and dictated notes on points to ask. Chief said, we just need to confirm the story. Izuku removed his hand and Ida had spilled his guts. I had chosen manual because I knew Stain was going to be there. I broke from my internship to seek revenge. I have shamed the name of Ingenium and my family. True. Tsukachi said, is Four Eyes getting expelled? No. Chief started false. No, not until we can confirm a few facts. True. Ida was trembling. Now about you two. Chief said, showing the image of the beginning. Why were you two not with your respective heroes? I had a scheduled appointment at this hospital. Izuku said, I have officials' documents from the principal for Mai and Katsumi excusing both of us. Deku wouldn't go without me there. Katsumi said, true. Tsukachi wrote on his notepad, now why was it you wouldn't be here? 'Cause I don't trust hospitals. Izuku said, true. The screen continued to show the shield being activated and Izuku grabbing Katsumi. Now this needs to be addressed. What are your quirks? Explosion. Katsumi said. Engine. Ida said. It is not the shield. Izuku said specifically. True. But could you give an exact name for your quirk? I could, but it isn't required by law. Izuku said. Also true. It moved on to the healing of Ida and paused. Could you identify the blue spray and how the gauntlet manifested on your arm? To simplify, it's an artificial fibrin that ensures BLD layers properly to seal a wound while minimizing the chance of a BLD clot forming inside the body. Izuku said, raising the armband, it's stored in a band I keep on my arm. No, it has nothing to do with a quirk. True. Your video has revealed a few things concerning Stark Industries. Chief said. That is not relevant to this incident. It has brought up a few inconsistencies in your file. Chief said, you show a very powerful regeneration quirk along with a metal skeleton. Your eyes are reflective like an animal's. Do you have a quirk? The things you have asked are not quirks. They are augmentations having no effect on the Q factor or my Q gene. Izuku said, true. But that was 𝗓𝗏. What is your problem? Deku doesn't need to tell you anything about that. Katsumi shouted. The problem being the Nomu had targeted Mr. Midoriya exclusively. Chief said, that was a kid I grew up with. One of several bullies I know, but I had no interactions with him after high school. Izuku said, true. Tsukachi said, but please tell us how you have changed so rapidly within the past year. Gene manipulation and implanted technology. Izuku said, my eyes have an artificial 𝗕𝗏𝗄 lucidum made of a metamaterial to focus light like a cat. My bones are fused with a tungsten foam to increase durability and prevent the negative effects of longer zero-gravity exposure. An electroactive polymer lines my heart. Nothing of that is quirk-based, and I didn't have anyone else's hand in their installation. True. Wait, so you've done experimental surgeries on yourself? Yes. Have you performed any of the same on others? Chief asked. How is that relevant? Shoko asked. Because without clearing it with the proper medical committees you look real suspicious of working with the League of Villains. Chief said, who else have you augmented? Hey, Midoriya wouldn't do that. Shoko said. Yeah, this is a shakedown. Izuku gave a side glance to All Might and the teacher nodded. A flick of a blade had caused everybody to jump as it was dug into All Might's elbow. A flick of a blade had caused everybody to jump as it was dug into All Might's elbow, Toshinori. Tsukachi asked. Midoriya fixed my injury. Toshinori said, it works. I don't understand it completely, but I know it isn't a quirk and I know it works. True. The whole room, minus Izuku, had looked at the metal bones in shock as the flesh grew back over it. Half my respiratory system. Over 25 surgeries. 7 years of waking up struggling to breath. 7 years of agony. All fixed because of this man. Toshinori said, don't you dare try and paint this man as a villain. Be that as it may. Chief said, adjusting his tie, the Hero Association is still trying every lead to find out who's manufacturing the Nomus and what to do with them. Just erase the quirks. Yusuke said, write a CRISPR that cuts out the Q gene and inject it into the Nomu. Their brain should reset itself and then you can ask what happened to them. CRISPR is an untested tech. Tsukachi said. No, it isn't. Izuku said, there exist plenty of gene editor quirks along with the stuff to make a quirk-killing virus. People just don't want to make something that will delete a quirk because of feelings. To take away someone's quirk is dash. Tsukachi started to shake. Is what? Toshinori asked, frowning. Boo freaking who a criminal gets his quirk deleted. Much better than it ending up in his hands or used for villainy again. Tsukachi had nodded and the chief showed he knew who his was referring to. Even so, you're talking about completely destroying a quirk here. Chief said, that's... He ran a hand through his hair. It's sick. So. Izuku and All Might said in unison. I won't mass produce it and I don't have any currently, but I can WHP one up if you give me the time. Midoriya, how fast can you make that? Ida asked, pale. With funding, give me 48 hours. Izuku said, but only with permission. Okay, the Hero Commission will need to speak with you about Stark Industries at a later date. Chief said. On to what we originally came here for. Katsumi Baku, Izuku Midoriya and Shoko Todoroki are all clear of unlawful quirk use and vigilantism. Ida Tenya, due to no prior marks and testimony from your teachers, you will be given an official warning. Pfya. We took down Stain. Katsumi shouted. About that? Chief said. About nothing. Izuku smirked. Under sidekick and hero law, we had not acted until given express permission from Endeavor himself to fight. Legally, me, Katsumi and Shoko are within the law to take credit with helping in the apprehension of Stain. Toshinori had also grinned, the boy's right. The girls cheered. However, as your teacher, I will say you should refrain from advertising that. All Might said. Shoko and Katsumi said. But this will add into your hero score when you're officially sworn in. All Might said, and you will be mentioned as having a hand in the news. The response was a 50-50. And Ida won't be allowed to say he was here. Izuku said. True. Chief said. That's my line. Tsukachi said. Time skip. Izuku woke up in his bed to a notification. Hero killer caught. 3 student interns major role in apprehending Stain but is ultimately captured by number 1 hero Endeavor. Jarvis notifications. Izuku said. The parts should be delivered today, sir. Jarvis said. Izuku had smiled. Things were looking up. Yaoyorozu Industries, Japan's best-known trillionaire, had made his money on his own. He wasn't even 16 before his father kicked him out and ordered him to make something of himself. Years after that day, he had walked into that same house with a bank statement in one hand, his wife on his arm, and a smile on his face. Momo was conceived on that desk the second his old man was kicked out. It wasn't until later he had been told why his father did that. A tradition dating back when they were rice farmers without a name. His ancestor had lost her parents at 16 to a tyrant of a noble family. She fled and worked 22 years, no, it was that exact number, and handed 8 million kyakusen to marry that nobleman's son. Her firstborn was kicked out to do something with his life. He came back just successful. This tradition in the family had been a constant. 8 million had always been a number in the family. It was the number of success. All the way up to current day when his own father had done it to him. He had hesitated with Momo, but he had kept part of that tradition. Momo had gotten her first job at 16. He hadn't kicked her out, but Isabella and him had spent every second not involved with work teaching her everything they could. He had paid for everything to his daughter except actual money. Any money Momo had received was from Isabella's personal account. She had been successful herself even though no one knew where she was from. People theorized maybe Russia, but she kept it secret. There were people who would try and suggest she was a gold digger or a streetwalker before. Those people didn't exist long. And he had first-hand witness of that being a bold lie. He was the only man to sleep with this woman. That fact was further hammered in by another one of Japanese's wealthy elite having a truth quirk and talking about affairs over drinks. Isabella had openly admitted she had never had a SEC before him. This woman was inhuman when it came to perfection. A goddess for a dragon. Now they were faced with an opportunity of a lifetime. Japan Petroleum Exploration Company Limited JPEX just tapped its last oil deposit. It had taken 2 years to find the last one. The Middle East was tapped dry, Africa was dry, all the existing land had been searched, and it had finally brought up the problem. The world was officially on the last stretch of time in terms of oil. Isabella had the same thought as he did. They knew what would replace oil. They had someone who had the technology already made and tested. And coincidentally, he was very close to their daughter. The dragon had pulled up his company's current stock of planes. His company owned the bulk of luxury private jet industry, along with a majority stake in Delta and American Airlines. The price of air tickets would rise. The other airlines would most likely be decommissioning planes to conserve fuel. All those extra planes available for the taking. I just got off the phone with Kato. Endeavor has gotten his foot in the door with Midoriya. Isabella said. Really? Yes, and from what our people could dig up, Midoriya is under some medical pressure to agree. Isabella said, handing over the tablet. Palladium poisoning. Well, that is concerning. Rumor has it Endeavor has at least 50 million ready to pay for an heir to create a more powerful offspring. Remember when he tried to offer his firstborn? Isabella said, pathetic really. Yes. After looking at a framed picture of the three at their vacation home, the dragon reached for his phone and started making a few calls. Okay folks, it's officially the long-awaited chapter where Izuku's solution to Mineta is revealed. Okay folks, it's officially the long-awaited chapter where Izuku's solution to Mineta is revealed. Also look up "Let Me Kill Mr. Quotes", they are actually interesting, and some DMN funny ones that match Tony. Like this one. This one for Kendo, the class rep of 1B, had gotten questions from the girls about the current status about the purple perv. Momo was wearing jeans and a t-shirts. It looked like work clothes. Oh, it's Suka, what can I do for you? Momo asked. Hey, the girls are wondering about the locker room incident. Kendo asked. Look, we're working on something that takes priority. Momo said, trust me, this isn't something that can be put off. Kendo's lips pressed together. I have the girls asking questions and they are looking for BLD. You want an explanation? Izuku said, walking behind her. We need to put a bell on you. Kendo said, jumping, and yes, the girls want something done. Izuku was silent. Get all them together in the rep meeting room. You girls wanna know why nothing has been done. Be there in 10 minutes. He said before walking off. Later the girls of both classes had assembled in the room. Izuku walked to the front and spoke. Okay, everyone here is wondering why it seems I am not performing my duties as class representative. We know DMN well why. Katsumi said. We don't. So you said. Yeah, you're kind of falling behind Midoriya. Toru said. Izuku has a good reason. Shoko said. Yeah, the perv can be dealt with later. Ochako said. What's so important that it takes precedent over that piece of shiitake? Izuku looked around and closed his eyes. BLD. That's all you want. You want results now instead of the problem being fixed at the roots. I think he's trying to cover for the perverted grape. You said, we want justice for what he did. Ibra said, no. You want vengeance. Izuku said, grabbing the hem of his shirt. You want BLD without looking at the big picture. We want that creep to pay. Reiko said. Seriously, what could more important than teaching that rapist to respect us? J.R. asked. In a single motion the shirt was removed and Izuku kept the same neutral face he had. In a single motion the shirt was removed and Izuku kept the same neutral face he had. This reason enough ears? Katsumi asked. You want BLD? Even though mine's currently full of a semi-radioactive metal and I'm currently on a time crunch. Izuku said, looking around at the shocked reactions. Holy, and that's not natural. Lord Almighty. Are you okay, Midoriya? Kendo asked. No. I'm wasting my time here instead of building the thing that will fix this the right way. Izuku said, like I intend to fix the situation I was elected to do. Fix it properly instead of temporary solutions. 𝗬𝗪𝐁 floating over and looked closer. Dude, you need to see a doctor? I have to sit in a chair getting my BLD scrubbed every 3 days in a building that I'm so scared of being in I need to have a walking bombshell with me just to actually go. Izuku said, gesturing to Katsumi, so I ask you all. Does my neta take priority in this situation or can I actually focus on actually fixing the problem? Hell no. Katsumi, Ochako and Momo said in unison. The others just sat there quietly. So what exactly is the problem? Yui asked. My body is causing a huge parasitic draw on the reactor. If I use my armor it's burning out cores. Izuku said, the problem is my body needs the extra electricity to speed up the healing. How exactly did it melt? Yui asked, pulling out a notebook. The core was overtaxed by a massive amount of power and melted into my bloodstream. Izuku said, the palladium is turning my body into a battery and if I don't make a core that can't melt I'm gonna die of palladium poisoning. A lie. Palladium was semi-radioactive but it couldn't be charged by electricity. Do you need the reactor in the chest? Shinso asked, couldn't you just leave it in a backpack or something? Too cumbersome. Izuku said, I am so sorry. 𝗬𝗪𝐁 said, if I knew, as I said. Billy. You wanted BLD, Izuku said, slipping his shirt back on. We wanted him to pay for not respecting women. Kendo said, I don't think you people understand the meaning of that word. Izuku said, you're confusing respect with decency. Respect is earned, decency is common. You're gonna need to expand on that. Pony said in English, my Japanese isn't that good. Izuku turned on the projector and it showed a PowerPoint in both English and Japanese. Decency is treating everyone equally. You know, not looking into bathrooms, not stealing from people, not 𝗔𝗪𝗍𝗔, not flashing people, not calling someone of specific ethnicity derogatory words. These are decency, it has nothing to do with respect. Izuku said, if I have zero respect for someone I still have the decency to not do these things. What about making perverse comments? Ibra asked. We're allowed to have our own opinions. We aren't in a place where wrong speak gets you executed. If someone is making inappropriate comments or jokes about you, a simple, would you kindly stop, is what is required. Decency would say you refrain from making the comments towards that particular person. Eraserhead said something similar. Shinso said, he told me respect is earned. Courtesy is standard. We listen to our teacher's cause of courtesy. When I saw him in action and how he had actually trained 𝗵𝗏 was when I think it turned into respect. Exactly. Izuku said, if you ever answer the question, why do you respect your teachers? With, they are teachers, then that's not respect. It's respect when you look back and realize how much help they've been, how much they've taught you, what they've donated isn't something that is just automatically given. We moved past that gender bullshit back in the early 2000s. Katsumi said, if you expect villains to go easy on you just because you have tips, then you don't belong here. If you want the perv to F off, then tell him to F off, and if he doesn't, then you have a quirk to deal with it. So what, we just forget what happened? Hell no. Izuku said, it was completely inappropriate and as I've said it will be dealt with accordingly, but don't let your emotions outstep your common sense. You said you had plans. Shoko said, is it too much to ask what they are? I have something that could completely stop him from these actions without lasting damage, but again I need to get the proper equipment. What's the solution? 𝗬𝗪𝐁 asked. Chemical castration. Yui asked. SEC change. Mina asked. Changing his preferences. Cutting it off. J.R. asked. No to all of it. Izuku glared. I have a machine that can read brain chemistry. So, it is a gay converter. Kendo said. No. Izuku said, there are 2 routes that can be taken, but I need to know what's going on in his nervous system. If it's just he's a pervert, then it's an easy fix. If it's what I'm thinking it is, then it's a chance to test a new invention. What's your theory? Yui asked, writing. I think it's better not to say it. If I do and it isn't, then it would be just getting your hopes up. Izuku said. Can we get at least a hint? No. Izuku said, now can I please go about my business? I'm behind schedule as it is. Kendo just nodded. Izuku walked out, followed by Ochako, Katsumi and Momo. 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝐷 said, clapping her hands together. Itsuka, I think we owe you an apology. I think we owe a lot more. Kendo said, putting a hand to her chest, just imagining what it must feel like. I'm going to church. 𝗓𝗫 said. I'll join you. 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝐷 said. Support studios. Okay, the parts were delivered to Stark Industries, so when we get there I need dash, boom. 𝗕𝗁𝗄. Izuku was on his back with something on his face. Get off him. Ochako shouted. DMN it Pinky. Katsumi rushed to help. Still working on that hover pack. Momo asked, not even phased. Still working on that hover pack. Momo asked, not even phased. No, actually I'm working on my latest baby for this. Mei said, holding a piece of paper. Green Energy Convention. Momo said, looking at it. Yeah, there's a expo on I-Island in a few months looking for new inventions. Mei said, apparently they're looking for something that won't need conventional fuels. 𝗕𝗁𝗄 get off of Midoriya. Power Loader said. Mei looked down. Oh hey, I was about to call you. She said. Izuku's hand had wrapped around her thighs and pulled her closer. Those the new Stark Industries shorts, right? Mei had stood up, Izuku still clinging to her, and leaned forward. Izuku stood up and Mei gave herself a smack. The pink letters faded away, showing a GIF. The pink letters faded away, showing a GIF, programmable 720p display with 10 slots of preloaded setting. Izuku said, giving her a pat, changing it to a GIF of a gear pattern around the shorts. Izuku said, giving her a pat, changing it to a GIF of a gear pattern around the shorts. How much for a pair of those? Ochako asked. They come in a 3-pack for 75. Izuku said, grinning, hitting it again. Izuku said, grinning, hitting it again. This, but it's Mei doing it. Antibacterial and machine washable. Mei said. Do you sell shirts like that? Power Loader asked. The shirt line is currently in production but won't be available for purchase for a while. Izuku said, so what are you making, Mei? A water-powered internal combustion engine. Mei said, so how's that going? The DMN thing overheats? Power Loader said, please make her stop. Alright. Mei, the parts are ready at Stark Industries. Izuku said, yippee. Mei said, reaching around for her notes and putting them in her backpack. Let's go. Stark Industries' Rei Todoroki had been given a draft of the contract. Shoko had talked to her about it, and when Fuyumi learned why she was going for it, she had to meet Izuku. Fuyumi had driven Rei to the facility Shoko had told her to meet at. He owns this place. Rei asked as they had approached. Yes. A voice said. I haven't decided Mr. Yaoyorozu's full name, but I have decided on the face I want to use. Daisuke Cam from The Millionaire Detective. Honestly, I'd love suggestions for the name. My future son-in-law is the founder. The dragon said. Rei's eyes widened. Shoko told her about her friend's involvement, but this was, oh my god. Fuyumi said under her breath. The door was opened and Grant led them to a different area. Inside was Shoko, the Yaoyorozu heiress, a pink-haired girl, a spiky blonde, a girl that she guessed was the daughter man who currently guiding them, and the green-haired boy himself. Please don't go past the red line. Grant said as they saw a tape line on the ground. Telling the richest man in the country no was not something Rei expected to result in a good thing, but the only response was a nod. Papa. The ponytailed girl said, wiping off some grease with a hand towel, then rushing over. Hi, Mommy. Shoko said, walking over in a slower pace. her eye back to its flawless complexion but her wrists still showing the burns from the fight. Ray had reached out and touched her face. "You look appealing, sweetie." Shoko smiled and hugged her. "Mr. Yaoyorozu." The green-haired one said, not even bothering to wipe off the gunk that she guessed was some kind of oil. "Mr. Midoriya, glad to see you are still active," he said, not even fazed by the dirty hands. Ray felt like she was in the Twilight Zone. "About the contract. If you know of the one I have with Shoko, then you know my rules. I don't care how much you or Endeavor insist. Ray Todoroki and Isabella Yaoyorozu are the final say," Izuku said. Ray looked from the green one, to the dragon, to his wife, to the girls. It continued until Fuyumi spoke. "Oh my god, it's actually true. I was afraid Shoko had taken something in college and imagined she found someone before Endeavor found some PP with a really specific quirk. Let's finish this in the meeting room. Girls, we can take a break. May go eat. Cat, there's a neutralizing agent in the showers. Ochako, go with May," Izuku said. "Thank F," the spiky one said, seeming to be drenched in sweat. "Where's the showers?" "Third building on the left. You gonna go in and make a right?" Grant said. Meeting room. The lawyer with the Yaoyorozu had pulled out paperwork. "Before anything is started, I want to ask if you have any questions," Izuku said. "Why you doing this?" Ray asked, looking at Shoko. "It was gonna happen anyway," Shoko said, getting looks from the Yaoyorozus. "Endeavor has been looking for someone to create the perfect grandchild since my quirk was announced. If I can have a kid with someone who has the ball to actually demand something from Endeavor for it and can screw him over in a single shot, then I'm happy." "Could you expand on that?" Isabella asked. "I can answer that," Fuyumi said, looking to Shoko, who nodded. "Endeavor is leaving Shoko everything, but a stipulation is he has to have a quirked grandchild first. Shoko had said she wanted to split the money between all of us when Endeavor dies." "Why would Midoriya be screwing him over?" Ray asked. "From his performance during the tournament, he's got a quirk that fits the criteria." "I'm quirkless," Izuku said. "I don't care," Mr. Yaoyorozu said. "How do you do all that stuff during the tournament?" Fuyumi asked. "Genetic engineering and augmentations," Izuku said, raising an arm and rapping his knuckles on it. "Tungsten carbine. Okay, that explains why Shoko is doing this, but why are you?" Fuyumi asked. "My sources say you're suffering from palladium poisoning," Yaoyorozu said. "This seems like you're priming the world for when you're gone." "Actually, I'm working on the fix, but well, the reward outweighed the risk. If I die, my babies are in the hands of people that will get it right. If I live, I have my kids paid for by someone a lot richer than me and I can focus on raising them," Izuku said. "So what is the fix?" Mr. Yaoyorozu asked. "Company secret," Izuku said. "Well, I will let you speak with Isabella privately," Mr. Yaoyorozu said. "Actually, I'd like Mrs. Todoroki to sit in as well," Isabella said. Later, Endeavor had arrived to the building as requested, being led to the building where he saw the Dragon of Japan standing in the hall. "Yaoyorozu," Endeavor said respectfully. "Endeavor," he responded. The next 5 minutes were spent in silence until the door opened. Endeavor said. The white-haired woman nodded. "I think the terms are fair," Ray said. "Perfect," Endeavor said. After going over the contract, everything was signed and Izuku said, "Guess it's time to do this." Getting down on one knee, he pulled out a wide box. "Momo Yaoyorozu. Shoko Todoroki. I know this isn't exactly the ideal way you wanted this to happen, but dash." He opened the box and 2 rings were revealed and a projection from the box appeared. "I know this isn't exactly the ideal way you wanted this to happen, but dash." He opened the box and 2 rings were revealed and a projection from the box appeared. Momo and Shoko both covered their mouths. "Yes," both said as Izuku put the rings on their fingers. Later, after everyone left, Momo, May, and Izuku stayed to finish the job. "Okay, so what are we doing exactly? I know we just built a particle accelerator, but what's the purpose?" "Hold on," Izuku said, pulling up a hologram. May and Momo watched as diagrams of what they couldn't make out be mixed together. "What am I seeing here?" Momo asked. "It looks like an atom," May asked, "but I don't think I've ever seen this before." Here it is, ladies, here it is, ladies. Izuku said as they looked at the things surrounding them. Isis, this, May asked, shocked. Yep. Izuku said, Potassium. A new element. Momo asked, covering her mouth. A new element. Momo asked, covering her mouth, stable at the atomic level. Human safe. Indefinite shelf life. Izuku said, the heart of Stark Industries. Momo had looked at it and then another hologram showed up. Let's get back to work, girl. Izuku said. 5:55 p.m. Izuku and May were doing the final check on the accelerator while Momo was setting up the core. Glasses on, girls. We're about to start a bright future. May pulled down her goggles and Momo made herself a pair of sunglasses. May pulled down her goggles and Momo made herself a pair of sunglasses. Izuku heard the hum of the machine starting and took a deep breath. When the machine was shut off, the glowing triangle had been the only light in the room. When the machine was shut off, the glowing triangle had been the only light in the room. Grabbing a pair of tweezers, he removed the glowing triangle and just looked at it. Ladies, it's a girl. Izuku smiling. Main lab, it's like a heartbeat, it's like a heartbeat. Momo said as they watched the new reactor kicked on. Yep, now all we gotta do is scrub the final pieces of metal out of my BLD and we can finally move on to greener pastures. Izuku said, grabbing a box. Izuku said, grabbing a box. What is that? Momo asked. May looked. Lithium dioxide. It's something to counter the palladium. Why haven't you been using it? Momo asked, sounding just as pissed as Bakugo sounded normally. You could have asked. I would have gotten a crate of this. It only works once. I've saved it for when we can replace the core. No use wasting it when I already had the solution. Izuku said, pulling out the injector gun from the case. Izuku said, pulling out the injector gun from the case. You wanna do the honors? Izuku asked. Momo said as the injector gun was primed and the bubbles were tapped out of it. A drop leaving the tip of it. So what's the plan for Purple Perv? Momo asked as she injected it into Izuku's arm. Izuku pulled up a file. The girls read it and both gave an evil smile. Is this? May started. This could work. Momo said, licking her lips. The next day Mineta woke up in a dark room with nothing but a hospital gown on. What the dash? Suddenly something grabbed his neck. His only source of light was a circle in front of him. Then two eyes were seen. I have something I need to discuss with you. I have something I need to discuss with you. The voice had his fear-stricken brain realizing this was Izuku. And he looked pissed. Don't let your PP outthink your head. Enemy Eagle Scout Darkroom Mineta was currently being held up by Izuku. What's going on? Where am I? You're in my world now. Izuku said as the blackness seemed to chip away. Reality breaking around him. The black flaking into blinding light. The three lights began spinning and suddenly Mineta was pulled somewhere. The three lights began spinning and suddenly Mineta was pulled somewhere. Meanwhile, Izuku stepped out the chair and moved to his computer. Izuku stepped out the chair and moved to his computer. Laying on a table with a headband wired to the machine was his classmate. Jarvis, how you doing, buddy? Izuku asked. As you have suspected, sir. Yep, like looking in AF mirror. Yep, like looking in AF mirror. Izuku said, leaning back. Isolation of 𝗬𝗵𝗲. Gene isolated. Izuku looked and groaned. He knew this image. The same F1 in Tony. Something Tony referred to as the alcoholic gene. Tony went through rehab. But what many didn't know was he used the extremists to edit out the addiction. So his body wouldn't have the same reaction to alcohol as it would have. When he died, Tony's body had been as if he hadn't had a drop of liquor in his life. Jarvis, pull up current image of mind scan. Displaying now. Jarvis, check official records on her. Jarvis, check official records on her. Miyuki Mineta. Age 43. Current employer, unemployed. Jarvis, run a facial scan and look for any records on her. Scanning filters prohibit access to domain name. Accept. Vanilla Unicorn employee 15 years. Stage name, Grape-Stop. Izuku said, rubbing his temple. Check any police records. 3 counted PRSTTN charges. 2 driving while intoxicated. 1 drag charge dating 2 years ago. Izuku let out an exhale through his nose. Father's name. No official documents. Check the dates on the last PRSTTN charge. Current year -5, Izuku leaned back and did some math in his head. Jarvis called the suit. Stepping out into the night air, Izuku pulled up an old contract. Yo Val, it's Midoriya. You saw the tournament. Hell yeah man, that was me. I need to talk to you. Back with Mineta, the pop-off quirk user was standing in a grand building made of crystal. What is going on? Mineta shouted. Your brain's getting picked. Izuku's voice said from what sounded like everywhere in the room. Well, what are you gonna do to me? Mineta asked. I'm not doing anything. Izuku said. A staircase formed and suddenly at the top, surrounded by a purple mist, was a dark figure. Squinting Mineta saw midnight. Mineta shouted, running up the stairs. Creak as he stepped up each stair. He had not realized he had cracked each step. Crash. The entire staircase broke and midnight faded into dust just as his hand had gotten close. The entire staircase broke and midnight faded into dust just as his hand had gotten close. Red light district. Walking through a standard patrol. Midnight had seen the red and gold. Landing was her student. Iron Man, hey teach, just stopping somewhere to get some info. Izuku said. Odu tell. Midnight said. I found something that is concerning regarding Mineta's behavior. Izuku said as they walked. I think it's actually a multitude of factors, but I can't look at the school's files without reason, and Nizu would not like what I'm doing. Oh, I get to go on patrol with my little girl's hubby. Midnight said. Yo V, Izuku said. A tall, dark-skinned man looked, and when Izuku's mask retreated he grinned. A tall, dark-skinned man looked, and when Izuku's mask retreated he grinned. Izuku Midoriya. How you been, lil PMP? Hell of a lot better. Izuku said, greeting him. Midnight eyebrow was raised. Met the kid when one of my hoes was going through AA. Val said, elbowing him. The AA meeting got a schedule conflict with the quirkless support group. Izuku said, best advice I've ever got from this dude. In this dimension. Oh, the 18+ hero herself. Val said, lowering his glasses, this one of yours? No, I'm just training his. Midnight smirked. Glad you made it. Val said, what can Valentino do for you? Looking into something. Little extra credit. Izuku said, pulling up a hologram. Looking for anything on this? Val looked, raised his eyebrow and said, don't look like one of my hoes, but definitely think I've seen her. I think she's one of Philip's girls. Thanks. Izuku said. Mind telling me what you doin' looking for this hoe? Mineta surrounded by fire, he was pulled towards something. As he got closer, a hammering got louder and louder. Looking up, he saw a towering figure the size. Made him think a lady, but as he got closer he saw a darker color, and then looking up he saw a towering figure the size made him think a milady, but as he got closer he saw a darker color, and then Mineta had started drooling. Suddenly a booming voice spoke. Don't even think about it, Grape. Mineta turned to see the thing she was hammering was the Iron Man suit. But it seemed to move unlike a human could. It melted and started covering him. The giant woman had changed form into Satan. Mineta asked. No. Mineta tried to turn his head but couldn't. Good. He was suddenly back in the white room. Footsteps heard approaching him. God. Seems accurate. The liquid removed itself from his body and began to form a figure. What is going on? Mineta asked, seeing the silver armor. Is this my punishment? Punishment? Wow, you really show no belief in me, shorty. You sent me to hell. No, your own brain did. What do you mean? You're a straight A student. You know who I am. Put the pieces together. Mineta went quiet. You're Midoriya. He started. It was quiet. Giving no outward answers. You're an inventor. More quiet. Am I in a matrix? Kinda. Mineta was thinking. You build stuff with that thick dash. The room started to distort. With 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Mineta corrected, causing the room to return to normal, and Momo appealing bodacious dash. Teeth. 𝗬𝗧𝗪. Mineta said. The room just froze upside down. You get all the hot babes. Mineta said. Mineta tried to think but couldn't. I don't understand what's happening. Just tell me please. The figure looked like a demon. You want me to just say it? The figure changed and the setting formed chairs. The figure changed and the setting formed chairs. Take a seat, kid. Let me give you a crash course of genetics, neurology and addiction. Izuku said. Mineta was shaking as he approached the other chair across from Midoriya. What do you know about addiction? You do stuff and you're hooked. Mineta asked. I don't know, all I cared about was my teacher had a massive rack in that class. It isn't that exactly. Izuku said as a goblet appeared in his hand with what seemed like an entire galaxy inside it. Do you know why humans are so hardwired to 𝐕 is fun? Dopamine. Izuku said, all species use it to indicate something that will ensure their survival. Eating things that taste good ensures you're eating, and mating ensures you pass down your genetics. Dopamine was the guiding factor that drive us to what we are today. Okay. But since humans have progressed and have all the SHT we could ever need whenever we need it, we now can overdo and have dopamine problems. It ain't rocket surgery. So, a hologram appeared before them of a double helix. Another thing that affects addiction is environment and genetics. Izuku said, pointing to a highlighted portion. I met your mother. Yeah, she's kinda a skank. Mineta said. And I ran a DNA check. She's got what I call the addict gene. The demon in the bottle. Izuku said, now the fact this is genetic means I can do something about it. So you just stick me with a needle and boom, I'm not a pervert anymore. Mineta asked. Well, there is a third thing. Izuku said, I'm essentially going to factory reset your pleasure centers. What, like brainwashing or something? No. Izuku said as another hologram appeared. The brain isn't the only thing that can think. The brain isn't the only thing that can think. There are a plethora of things your spine does. You ever react to pain even before you feel it? That's your spinal cord at work. Or your issue, my pages. Mineta asked. Your PP is essentially overriding the command of your brain. Izuku said. Now this is a one-of-a-kind thing, so there's a chance it could fail, and well, you at least understand what will happen if you do anything like that again. Expelled? Mineta asked. Izuku nodded. A new cup forming. You up to make history? You up to make history? Yes. Mineta said, holding up the cup. Cheers. Outside, Mineta was injected with the prototype 𝗧𝗵𝗲. How's it looking, Jarvis? Editing of selected genes has been completed, sir. Beginning superconducting fibrification of neural dendrites. Izuku nodded. Izuku Brain Nano was looking at the screen and said, this is smart. If it works, things are gonna get a lot faster in here. Yeah. Horned Izuku said, so you 𝗬𝗧𝗪 happy. You have all the power you want. I want to see the vault. Number 1 said. And I'd like you to pull your PP out of my butt. Nana said. You started it. Horned Angel said, bouncing his knee. She does that a lot. Number 1 said from a spot near the wall. I'm impressed you made something to counter the energy draw. And you had a solution to the perv. 2 said, I'd have just let him get expelled. Well, I did jailbreak All Might. Izuku said. Yeah, we weren't too happy about that. Number 1 said, crossing his arm. We wanted to just leech him dry and move on, but no, you wasted all that power unlocking his quirks. Hey, now we have 2 weapons against your brother and you're getting the power back. Izuku said. True. I wonder what's going on in the grape's head. Probably something 𝗓𝗧𝗪𝗂. Nana screamed as she was flooded again. Probably something 𝗓𝗓𝗪𝗂. Nana screamed as she was flooded again, 45 in a row. I had to tap out after 5. Daigoro Banjo said, Nana got stamina. To be fair, Nana did have you use your quirk for that. Hikage Shinomori said, but it is good someone else has the mental energy to deal with her. You want to get off now? Izuku asked. Never. Nana let out a gurgle. I will break you eventually. Mineta's head, Mineta dressed in a gimp suit, was slamming on the console. The entire room seemed to be warping. Oh, energy. A voice said. A door to the spine that he had bolted shut was being beaten open. You're in my seat. A second voice said. An angel and a devil kicked down the door. Come on guys, you liked it down in the nads. We liked it here. Angel said. And we're taking our spot back. Devil said. Epic fight, I can't write. The third 𝗵𝗲 was thrown down the spine and the two looked around. SHT, this place went to hell. Devil said. Let's get cleaning. Angel said. Can we keep the MT lady posters? Devil asked. One each. I want the midnight one. Angel said. Next morning 𝗵𝗲 woke up in his room and rubbed his head. Was it all a dream? Plus he felt something on the back of his head. Taking his phone and taking a picture, he saw a piece of metal. Okay, the part I've wanted to do for a while has finally happened. Stark Industries. Thor had been adjusting to Earth. Victor of Stone had been tasked with guiding him along with carrying the hammer. Loki would have a heart attack when he learned the vast majority of this hero association's members could wield it. This is the place. BoomTube said, looking at his phone. A portal appeared, but then Victor seemed confused. Something troubling you? Thor asked. I can't portal in here. Victor said. Because I've fought a portaler before and don't want to break in. The head of green hair looked a lighter green and his face had lost its exhausted state. Odinson. Man of Iron said, nodding. BoomTube. Man of Iron, you're looking better. Yeah, the palladium is flushed from my system. Izuku said, scratching his neck. I guess it's time I show you why I didn't hesitate to flatten Loki, so you know before he gets up. Actually, Loki is awake. BoomTube said. The hammer immediately flew towards Izuku, but Victor had grabbed it. How, girl? Victor said, digging in his heels to prevent it from getting within arm's reach of the younger man. Sorry. Izuku said, Ished. Just let's take this one step at a time. BoomTube said. Izuku nodded. Inside, what is this? It's a full dive helmet. It's a full dive helmet. Izuku said, before you ask, it's this big because I don't want it easily stolen. I could make a smaller one, but this is for safety reasons. Why do we need this? Because I have to show you. Do you know about the multiverse? Yes. Thor and Victor said at once before Thor had a realization. You've traversed the beyond. Thor exclaimed. Yes. I've traversed the multiverse. Izuku said, just hold on. As the machine booted up, they pulled up a scene. It was a building with Thor, a man that looked similar to Man of Iron but with brown hair and others. That's me. Izuku said, pointing to the brown-haired man. Thor, glad you're back, buddy. Handing him a drink. Man of Iron, good, you are looking well. The second Thor said, a much older version with an axe said, raising his drink. I have much to tell you about my adventures. Well, some good news would be appreciated. Tony said, I stopped Ragnarok. Thor said, what? Current Thor shouted. The scene was paused. Yes. You stopped it in that timeline. Izuku said, you also managed to prevent your father's death at Loki hand. This is glorious news. Thor said, hold up, pal, I wanted to show you this first so you can get a reason I'm doing this. The scene changed to a fight. That is Thanos. Wait for it, wait for it. Izuku said. Okay, so this dude's tough. Okay, so this dude's tough. Victor said, what's Loki gotta do with it? Victor said, what's Loki gotta do with it? I said, kneel. That is an infinity stone. Izuku said, one of 6 including the one in your hammer. What? Thrust. The purple 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗔𝗍 collected all of them and wiped out half the universe. It changed to a scene on another world. Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. You're all right? The child hugged Tony. I don't know what's happening. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Thor watched both Iron Men start tear up. Thor watched both Iron Men start tear up. Half. The universe. Izuku said, changing to a scene. Izuku said, changing to a scene, all starting with him. The tear-stained face twisted into a glare. Now instead of the Chitauri, it's gonna be Odin. Izuku said. The scene rewinded, showing the entire progression up to that scene. Dude. Victor said, are you okay? No. I'm not. I was fine until Izuku closed his eyes and a scene of the hospital with the hammer appearing in his hand. Until I found out my own Ragnarok was happening. Man of Iron. If you can show me how to stop Ragnarok, I can promise, on my name, my place as future king of Asgard and Mjolnir itself, Midgard, will be unharmed. Thor grabbed Izuku's shoulder. Izuku nodded. Why did you need us in here? Victor asked. Because Father can scry throughout the universe. Any reflection can be seen. Thor said, it is amazing to use a mindscape to hide from it. Izuku waved his hand and a coffee table appeared with cups and a pitcher. Here. Izuku said, pouring what looked like a galaxy into the cups. What is this? Victor asked. Thor knocked it back and blinked. Dskud. It's literally Zen. Izuku said, in the mindscape you can literally drink feelings. It's real useful for calming the shakes. It makes your brain fire the neurons in the proper way. Victor tipped it back. Yeah, it's better we all have a clear head. Izuku said. Area 51. 5 Loki was currently trying to get up. His whole body hurt. The Midgardians had a 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗏 they called morphine. Jesus, this made Asgard painkillers look like candy. The nurse changed the bag and the wave of relief hit like the 𝗵𝗵𝗏 hammer. A portal opened and Loki's monitor immediately spiked. Out walked the person who ever actually did what his entire race had wanted to do. Hello, Frost Runt. Okay, that's hurtful. Loki said. Loki, I have great news. Thor started, but Victor covered his mouth. The needle was removed. Something Thor had to insert due to his skin strength. Not as durable as a majority of Asgardians, but stronger than a human. Well, most of them. The entire planet was full of sorcerers. Hey, give that back. Loki shouted. No. Izuku said, glaring. You have no place to speak to me, Midgardian. I am a god, you insect. Loki said, trying to stand, but his bones were still mending. The Midgardians holding him didn't have the dust of air or her healing. No. You aren't. Izuku said, you're an alien fuckboy with a quirk. That's it. Izuku said. Loki didn't need all speak to know he had just been insulted. You will pay for. Loki felt the pain returned, then a backhand. You still owe me that coin. Brother, just cease this for a moment. Thor said. We're going somewhere to show you something important. Victor said, getting between Izuku and Loki. He definitely wasn't gonna outmuscle either of them, but he was ready to portal any attacks. The hammer was chained to his body and Thor had put an arm to stop Izuku. Loki made a whining noise. He had never once in his over millennium of existence had he been in so much pain. Of course, Asgardian healing didn't cause any pain. Well, take the bag. Victor said. Hey Vic, hold up, I want to try something. Izuku said, if magic exists and I'm not currently dying, I want to see if something works. Izuku started doing hand gestures and Loki actually started snickering. You need a spell focus to dash. Izuku tapped his chest and the blue glow started following his hands. Oh, if Midgard has wizards now. Loki said. Now what was that pattern? Izuku said more to himself. Now what was that pattern? Izuku said more to himself. The sound of liquid in a tube filled the room as a portal opened with Izuku spinning his hand. The sound of liquid in a tube filled the room as a portal opened with Izuku spinning his hand. Oh, this is cool. I want to go home. Loki shouted. I want to go home. Loki shouted. Meanwhile in Kamar, looking up from his book, Doctor Strange sensed something. Going to the sanctum, he looked around. Walking to a shelf, he grabbed a trinket. A little thing he carved to keep track of all things magic. An old man from another universe had taught him after defeating a necromancer and destroying 7 soul fragments. An old man from another universe had taught him after defeating a necromancer and destroying 7 soul fragments. Yes, Drive Strange entered another universe and unintentionally stomped Voldemort. At least this version. The crystal in the trinket was flashing. There were 3 signatures. Platinum, blue. Platinum, god or goddess blue. Mortal wizard Strange had remembered that blue. It was when he first used the magic detection crystal to block his own signature. Same blue. Ancient one was gold, a symbol of joining magic itself. After a short spell, a sheet of silver appeared. Sir. Dr. Strange bowed. Trinkets do not lie. She said, meditating. Thou, I will warn you to not engage as I have told you before. Need you a reminder? Dr. Strange shook his head. He had felt when the hammer had first entered the atmosphere but had been stopped by his I'm gonna put Welcome to Midgard chapter back up, but it's gonna be Doctor Strange's vision of a reality. I will speak with the Asgardians and him. Dr. Strange said. The blue signature was new. That person just cast their first spell from how it looked. Much weaker than Strange. Meditating, he scried to see what was going on. Outside Stark Industries, oof. Little shaky but good job. Vic said, showing up through his own portal. When did you learn the ways of the arcane? Thor asked. Fighting a titan with a wizard. Izuku said. Why does that not sound like nonsense? Vic asked. Let's get him in the chair. Izuku said. Later, Loki watched the final few seconds as the purple figure had snapped but the gems were missing. Everything went white. Sorry you can't see what happens next. Kinda dangerous. Izuku said. Okay, so full disclosure. I've never met this man in my life. For once I'm telling the truth. Loki said as the room changed into a replica of Avengers Tower. Second, how dare you think my scepter is one of these infinity stones? It is made of a drop of dew from the world tree I plucked myself. No one helped me make that spell focus. Yeah, I get universes differ, but I know you. Izuku said, God or monster in any universe, you're still Loki. Well, I am glad I instill enough fear in Dash. Hate. Pure. Unfiltered. Izuku aid as the destroyer appeared and shaped into a suit of armor. Loki started shaking. Izuku sighed and changed back. They exited the VR world. Okay, Vic said, so now we know what's gotta happen. You two can dash. I still can't lift Mjolnir. Thor said, I am banished until I can lift it. And I sure as SHT ain't giving your scepter back. Izuku said. Where is that, by the way? Victor said. It's better you don't know. Izuku said. I've got it. Thor said, standing up. I was an Avenger in that realm and the heroes in this one are worthy. I just have to join them. Brother, think you could potentially become worthy? Can you even use your lightning? Loki asked. Without a focus, I'm stuck with my ice. Lots of heroes have powers like yours, you two just need a teacher. Vic said. Oh yeah, where on Midgard could there possibly? Loki saw Izuku face go pale. Vic grinned. Thor grinned. No. Izuku said. Come on, kid. Victor said. Avengers assemble. Thor said. Look, even if I agree with it, Nizu is the deciding factor. Izuku said. Vic pulled out his phone. Yo Toshi. Mind a skin Nizu if there's room for a late year transfer. Hold on. Hello. Hey Nizu, it's BoomTube. I got 2 students I wanna recommend. Victor grinned. Izuku went paler and paler as Nizu had agreed to give them a meeting time. What do you say, brother? Thrust. Loki was grinning at the terrified face of Izuku. Avengers assemble. Izuku put his face in his hands. Later, after BoomTube brought the two to Izuku, hung back to get his armor. Energy disturbance detected. Plus, strange. Izuku said, nodding. Yes, Iron Man can detect magic. Yes, Iron Man can detect magic, Mr. Midoriya. Strange said. Dr. Stephen Strange. Greatest quirkless surgeon in the world. Izuku said, I've been expecting you. Loki Odinson, Laufeyson at Bjarch, but adopted frost giant's son of Allfather Odin. Over 1,000 years old. You see some SHT. You don't get the title, Trickster of the Gods, by telling knock-knock jokes. But a green-haired Midgardian in his underwear wielding Mjolnir was definitely a what the F moment. The very hammer being thrown at Loki was also a very rare occurrence. I'm gonna send your goddamn head to those dwarves. Let's talk about this. Loki started as his scepter was materialized, but this seemed to piece off the Midgardian even more. Thor had rushed to step in, but the hammer was backswung and brother was sent flying. Loki thought as his meat shield he called brother was pushed past. You don't belong here, 𝗳𝗏𝗀. The face said. To bet if you were to ask Dr. Stephen Strange, greatest quirkless surgeon in the world, confirmed by every country except 3 and universally agreed by anyone that set foot in the same operating room as him whether he'd rather walk into hell naked or China, he'd have said hell 14,605 out of 14,605 times. When he broke his hands cause he was driving while texting. His insurance company refused to pay for a quirked doctor with the specialty to actually restore his hands instead of healing them. After being butchered by a lesser surgeon doing something Strange could have done better drunk and high, he was out of the field. After draining the majority of his savings, selling his home and finally breaking down, he found someone who had restored their ability to walk with what they claimed was magic. Strange had entered the quirkless meat grinder called China illegally to seek a group of Tibetan monks. When given the option to restore his hands or become the next sorcerer supreme, he had chosen something greater than what he was. Now faced with something, he honestly was starting to regret picking magic. When arriving in New Mexico, he was greeted by an armored figure with a shield in one hand and the hammer of Thor in the other, shouting death threats at the ice giant. When arriving in New Mexico, he was greeted by an armored figure with a shield in one hand and the hammer of Thor in the other, shouting death threats at the ice giant. The scepter of the green-eyed trickster was smashed with the hammer and the ice giant had started trembling. Strange could tell it was a spell catalyst, so destroying it would destroy a majority of the trickster's abilities. Well, time to step in. Back on site, Thor had gotten in between the armored figure and his brother. When he grabbed the wrist of the attacker, a beam hit him in the face, followed by a headbutt. Thor pushed him back, but an uppercut from the Midgardian and another backhanded swing from his hammer had put him back on his warpath to Loki. Thor pushed him back, but an uppercut from the Midgardian and another backhanded swing from his hammer had put him back on his warpath to Loki. You're paying for that scepter. Loki said. You know what, that one was old, I can get a new one. You know what, that one was old, I can get a new one. Loki struggled to say as he was trying to get back up. Loki had always had some out. Something to worm his way out of a problem, but now he was resorting to whatever he could. You want money? Throwing a coin at him. Okay, here's a real 𝗧𝗏. Loki shouted, throwing a bracelet off his arm. 5. Okay, here's a real 𝗧𝗏. Loki shouted, throwing a bracelet off his arm. Okay, here's a real 𝗧𝗏. Loki shouted, throwing a bracelet off his arm. Thor had tried to call for the hammer, but it didn't even budge. Odin, Father Simeon, save my brother. Thor thought as this destroyer was aimed at his brother. Gentlemen, I think this is enough. Great, now there's 2 of them. Loki shouted. I think you should sit this out. Strange said to Loki. Listen, you 2-bit dash. Bring it back, Strange. Bring it back, Strange. The armored figure said, we need to kill that insect before it can do anything. Strange looked at him and said, we need to stop and discuss this like rational adults. There was a pause before the hammer was raised and lightning struck it. There was a pause before the hammer was raised and lightning struck it. Okay then. Strange said. Strange said. Thor wisely backed up. Thor wisely backed up. Japan young Bokugu had been called the winner due to forfeit. She didn't take it well, but before they could give out the awards, All Might got a notification. I must go. All Might said, rushing out the stadium. Deflating and putting on his glasses, he saw Midoriya's HUD. Deflating and putting on his glasses, he saw Midoriya's HUD. Jarvis, please tell me where the hell Midoriya is and what the F is going on. Toshi shouted, Jarvis, please tell me where the hell Midoriya is and what the F is going on. Toshi shouted. New Mexico. Currently fighting a wizard with a magic hammer. Call in Liberty. Toshi said, and pull up contacts. Suit en route. Calling boom tube, All Might slipped into an ally and his suit landed. Toshi. It's like 10 at night. An American said. Dude, I need a ride to New Mexico like now. All Might said. Wait, you know what's going on. What's happening? Who the F knows? Our guys can't get past the giant F tornado surrounding the area and no teleporters are willing to risk it. I know what's going on. Call off any teams, I just need a way inside. Toshi said. Alright, where are you? Midoriya 33 God Diamond stones. This was the only coherent thought in Izuku's head as he was fighting the wizard he had fought shoulder to shoulder with against the Mad Titan. When he smashed open the gem on the scepter, he found nothing, which just pushed him further into a panic-induced frenzy. The hammer was spun and thrown at Strange, but it changed direction. Midoriya. The booming voice of his teacher had been drowned out by him holding the hammer. Midoriya. The booming voice of his teacher had been drowned out by him holding the hammer. Is everyone here worthy? Thor shouted into the sky. Or you? Strange said. The armor opened and Toshinori changed form. All Might. Oh. Strange said, didn't recognize the armor. A gift from him. All Might said, Midoriya, stop this now. All Might said, Midoriya, stop this now. What's going on with him? Strange asked. I don't know. He's not in his right mind is all I can tell. Toshinori said. If you can get the helmet off, I can help calm him down. Strange said. Sorry about this, Midoriya. All Might said, rushing forward. The helmets shattered, revealing the boy's face. The helmets shattered, revealing the boy's face. Pale white, covered in sweat and trembling. Panic attack. Strange said when he actually could see his face. The hammer was called, but All Might had dug his heels in and it seemed to stop. Strange had gotten close and the lights of the suit went dark as the power of a god had finally stopped flowing through it. The arc reactor burned out already. The figure was still strong and Strange had taken a few hits before he had landed a hand on the exposed face. The figure was still strong and Strange had taken a few hits before he had landed a hand on the exposed face. The armored student slumped over. His armor keeping him from falling flat on his back. The storm stopped and All Might looked down at the hammer. A bunch of the American heroes had finally rushed in and were about to grab Midoriya, but All Might had stopped them. He's my student. All Might said, was anyone harmed? No one died. One of the heroes that got here said, we need to take him in for questioning. This boy is suffering from a panic attack. From what I can tell, it's PTSD. Strange said, a cell isn't gonna save his mind from reacting the same. He did this. The hero gestured to the aftermath of the whole fight. And who the hell are you? My name is Dr. Stephen Strange. I deal with supernatural threats to Earth. Stephen said. And I'm the King of France. Look, let's get to a base and we can actually discuss this. All Might asked. Sounds like a great idea, gentlemen. A voice said. Supergirl. All Might exclaimed at America's #1, Supergirl. All Might exclaimed at America's #1. Where the F were you? The on-site hero shouted. Personal business. She said, let's get these guys somewhere we can question him. All Might slumped Midoriya over his shoulder and the Iron Liberty armor followed him. And I decided to hold back. Strange said, explaining the reality that happened last chapter. Makes sense. Izuku said, who was the blonde chick? I've never heard of Supergirl before. Don't know. Strange said, I was only viewing my own eyes in another world. Can you check? Izuku asked. No. 𝗧𝗵𝗲. No. I won't use magic to get you a date. Dr. Strange said. Fine. Izuku said, on to more serious business. Yes. You not only show a magic signature, but you've successfully cast a portal without a sling ring. Dr. Strange said. I mean, you can do the same with the time stone. Izuku said, pointing to his chest. This is the Eye of Agamotto. Yeah, housing the time stone. Izuku said. You want to see that it's not the stone? Strange asked. Please. Izuku said. Opening the eye revealed an eye. Just an eye looking at him. Blinking but not showing anything unusual. Okay, Izuku said, so you're here. I wanted to know why Loki and Thor Odinson are on Midgard. Strange said, now that I know you have the situation handled, I must speak with you. That figures. Izuku said, let's get in the full dive. It's easier than talking and it will be faster. I gotta get some sleep for class tomorrow. Mindscape. Dr. Strange looked around. Interesting. I have a demi-plane similar. The space theme is a nice touch. I'm more fond of clocks. Yeah, I am the only man who's been in space in the last 200 years. Izuku said. Pardon? Strange asked. A display of the two just outside the Earth watching a satellite being worked on. Strange then watched the scene change to what he only guessed was the boy's mother, laying on a hospital bed. The paper with deep coma sent a pain into the neurosurgeon. Watching the injector of an unknown substance had him instinctively rushing to stop it. His years of medical training screaming to stop him. Then it cut to a new scene. The woman was standing tall, skinnier but functioning. This is 3 days later, Izuku said. It then showed Izuku's additional augmentations. Electroactive polymer inside the human heart. Strange said, "What do you think?" "I'm mad I didn't get to implant it." Strange said, "Dude, good job." He could only awkwardly clap. His hands injury prevalent. "Yeah." Izuku said, "And if you're as smart as your skills showed, then you know why I'm showing you this." Strange looked at him and then briefly looked at his hands. "If I use my magic to repair my hands, I won't be able to cast anymore. It's called science. You were one of us, were you not?" Izuku said, "I can fix your hands. Hell, I can prevent them from ever getting broken again. Why are you offering me this? I know beings don't do things for no reason." Strange said. He was no stranger to making deals with higher powers. A scene in a doctor's office, a small boy, his crying mother and a mustached man. "You should give up your dreams." The X-ray. The toe joint. Strange had reached for his back pocket but remembered they weren't in the maternal world. Izuku showed he had kept a copy of that X-ray in his wallet too. Strange started. "We Deku's gotta work together, man." Izuku said, "Recently I've been going through some tea. You saw what happens when I panic and am alone." It showed what actually happened in 𝗕𝗫𝗄𝐻. "So what do you want from me?" Strange asked. "I want a pact." Izuku said, "You and me are two mother F heirs who can get 𝐻𝐸 done. You're the grand time wizard dash, sorcerer supreme. Don't ever call me that." Strange said, "Anyway, your job is dealing with magic. I think you can get a lot done if we work together." Izuku said. Strange watched the memories of Tony's interactions with another Stephen Strange. "I wanted to say without Tony getting in the way, I respect you, dude." Stephen blinked. "You are the greatest surgeon in the world." "I was the greatest surgeon." Stephen said. "And now your hands can't even zip up your pants properly." Izuku said. "I wear robes." Strange said. "Anyway, I know you deal with some pretty tough mothafs and I have an idea I wanted to offer." Izuku said. Strange felt something manifested around his body. Strange felt something manifested around his body, introducing the Iron Mage. Izuku said. This is incredible." Strange said as a list of features appeared. "Okay, seriously, what do you want?" "I'm trying to create a network of people to deal with threats heroes couldn't." Izuku said, "Avengers-level threats. So you want me to join a vigilante group?" Dr. Strange asked. "Well, vigilante only qualifies under criminal and quirk use." Izuku said as a pair of glasses formed, "You're quirkless and you're not fighting criminals. Ergo not vigilantes." "You son of a beach. I'm in." Strange said. "Great, now let's get you augmented." Izuku said. "Elsewhere in the labs. Okay, since I know you want proof this will work, here's a localized variant called Extremis 2. 4. Strange had extended out one hand and Izuku injected him. The area had melted. Straight up melted. Strange was in his own mind watching his hands get butchered by a lesser surgeon. One he had expressly demanded a better one, but no, his insurance had refused to allow him to call the guy with the only quirk that could put his hands together properly. Tears fell down his face as he remembered his protests. "Please wait for law." "That sounds expensive." The insurance agent said. "I'll pay. I have 10 million worth of insurance for my hands. I can't risk losing them." Strange was begging. Then a snapping was heard. "Hey, stay with me, Strange." Stephen shook his head. "Smell the ashes, Mr. Freeman." Raising the hand, Strange watched an entirely new hand be reformed. Raising the hand, Strange watched an entirely new hand be reformed. Strange flexed the fingers. The resistance was gone. His fingers were back to normal. A pencil was handed to him and Strange started something he often did with the scalps. A pencil was handed to him and Strange started something he often did with his scalps. This is my hand. Strange said. Izuku grabbed the other hand and repeated it. Strange had kept himself in reality as the hand was regressed and grown back. Well, wizard, give him a shot. Strange stood in a stance, breathing and beginning a long chant. As more strands collected, Strange had kept going. As more strands collected, Strange had kept going. His body running the years of practice to cast with his hands old rock steadiness. His body running the years of practice to cast with his hands old rock steadiness. I feel like I'm a patron. Strange said. Well, you see what you're working with now, let's get your some extremists too. Izuku said. To need some time. Strange said. Yeah, I gotta get to the dorms. Izuku said. I'll take you there, Tony. Strange nodded. Before we leave, I need to ask. That mirror image thing you do dash, the images of icon. Those are superposition, right? Izuku asked. Yes, Strange asked. If you're say doing something and you use that, can you essentially be in two places at once? Well, I can't be reading multiple books at once with it. Strange said, but I could say be fighting someone to cast from different locations, but I can't cast something as focus heavy. What if you're railing someone? Izuku asked, can I become a one-man genie? Actually, that might be a valid use. Strange put a finger to his chin. I gotta make a few calls later. But the images require sight, so I don't think you could do that. What about a blindfold? Izuku asked. Strange looked forward, zoning out. Okay, here's how you do it. A dorms. Izuku walked in and everyone from 1A and 1B had been waiting. A round of clapping and cheers was heard. Glad you're back to full health, man. Kirishima said. Sorry, this isn't longer. Really wanted to end it with the girls talking, but next chapter will handle it. Plus, yes, Izuku is making his own Avengers and he is only learning 2 spells. Class 1A dorms. Izuku walked into a party with the 2 classes. You told everyone, didn't you? Izuku said, looking at Katsumi and Ochako. Round face and ponytail couldn't hold back. Katsumi said. Izuku smiled and shook his head. A spread of food was on the counter. Grabbing some udon, he found a spot. Meanwhile, so Tokoyami, you got a mentorship with Hawks, right? Kinoko Komori asked. So, Tokoyami, you got a mentorship with Hawks, right? Kinoko Komori asked. Yes, he's been a boon to learn under him. Tokoyami said, I've grown under the Red Wing's shadow. Your little drone thing has a camera, right? She asked. Yes. Any pictures? She asked, leaning closer. Dark Shadow and Izuku were observing silently, each looking at one another, and a single nod from Izuku, who pulled out his phone and pointed. Each looking at one another, and a single nod from Izuku, who pulled out his phone and pointed. Dark Shadow grabbed Tokoyami's phone and it was shown a new app showed up. What? Tokoyami asked, looking. Red Wing. Kinoko asked, seeing the app, opening the drone's files. Videos of scouting and standard stuff. Komori was awestruck as she started looking. Are you looking for anything particular? Any shirtless selfie? Komori said, I don't remember any point using Red Wing during dash. Holy shiitake. She shouted. What? Tokoyami asked. What? Tokoyami asked, oh yeah, I was testing the camera. Dark Shadow said. So muscly. Kinoko said. Yes, I have grown under the shadow of Midoriya and Hawks. Tokoyami said. Hey Tokoyami, you know what else grows in the shadows? What? Tokoyami asked, taking a drink. He looked and she was closer. Really closer. Mushrooms. She said. Dark Shadow was snickering while giving a look at Izuku. Hey Midoriya. Shoko said, walking over. Can I see the recording of the All Might fight again? All Might fight? Kendo asked. Yeah, I fought All Might on a beach I think a year or so ago. Izuku said. Oh, you are showing us that. Minoma said. Yeah, I want to see that. Mina said. Izuku had 40 students wanting to watch. Alright. Jarvis, pull up HUD display. Izuku said. Everyone got into a spot. Mei had taken Izuku's lap. Katsumi took his left, Momo on his right. Mina took Katsumi's lap. Don't block the screen, Pinky. I'm not. Mei and Mina said. The image pulled up and Shinso said, Wait, that's the diamond beach you showed us. Yes. It was actually just after I cleaned it. Izuku said Katsumi as the video continued and the announcement of the extremists being on the line the weight of what this fight was for. You made All Might fight for a new lung. 𝗬𝗪𝐁 shouted. How else would it be a real fight? Izuku asked. What the hell lead up to this? I got a call from Izuku saying we're gonna fight God. Mei said. The video was paused. Is this even legal? Kendo asked. Everyone consented. Izuku said. Teacher's Lounge Nizu had pulled up that video. Izuku had given it to him for documentation and All Might had a copy because he wanted to see it. Everyone consented. Toshinori said at the same time as Izuku. In that room was the teachers, Thor and Loki. This is horrifying. Powerloader said. I know that feeling. Loki said as he was watching what he was seeing his first interaction with the Class 1A president. And the reason you went along with this was because of the extremists? Aizawa asked. Toshinori nodded, munching on his popcorn. The electric clamps was a good move to stop your punches. Aizawa said. Nice job kicking those rockets. Snipe said. Class dorms, I still have that tooth. Izuku said, vacuum sealed in a bag. You collect a lot of teeth. Tenya said. Hey, yeah, you fought Ida on that same beach. Ochako said. I want to see that, but Wu Pin. 𝗬𝗪𝐁 said. Actually, it's not as impressive. Ida said, do you even have that fight? I record everything. Izuku said, I can't even count the number of times people have screwed me over because of ignoring my claims. The smoke arose and All Might coughed up. BLD Teacher's Lounge, I don't want to hear it, Jarvis. The fight continued, devolving to a boxing match. Look, the visor is on reserve power. Mike said. This is raw muscle versus muscle. Midnight purred. This images just takes the fact you are older than me more impressive. Vlad said as the ringing. What's is that bell? Thrust. Midoriya has a metal skeleton. All Might said, I have the same augmentation now. Loki slowly turned his head to Toshinori. This was reminding him of Odin's fight against the Asgardian gods. Yes, Asgard had its own gods, which Odin had killed. Nizu had put a paw on Loki. You are a student now. We all follow the rules and dash, ding. Both bodies dropped. You are no different than any other of our students. Loki had just realized this was proof. If he had been trying to harm Midgard, then he would have been splattered across the dirt. I don't think I've ever said this, but thank you for saving me, Loki said to All Might. All Might picked up the hammer, given to him since he was going to be Thor and Loki's keeper. It's what heroes do. The video ended with the camera picking up Mei talking on the phone. God can bleed. Thor and Loki had remembered what Odin had said when the last giant fell. God can bleed and Asgard belongs to the Aesir. A severed head held by its hair. So, Hounddog said, since you two haven't had a proper court counseling session, we can do that tomorrow. Students, as the video reached its final fist fight, Shoko had said, I thought the camera cut out before. Well, would you have kept All Might's skinny form secret? Izuku asked. No. Shoko said. It most likely would have ended up in one of the yelling matches against her father. Nice line there, Crossies. Katsumi said when Mei's phone conversation came up. I call it blasphemous. Ibra said. Well, Izuku once said he often thought people like us as higher beings and needed to get that mentality out. Mei said, this kinda gave me a true idea of that mentality. I still don't get it. One said, when the world sees you as an insect, you can be an ant or a hornet. Izuku said, what in the fresh hell happened to you? 𝗬𝗪𝐁 asked, seriously, if you were willing to fight a desperate All Might till both of you were hamburger meat, what the F was your childhood like? Izuku said, complete. I've asked why. Katsumi said, the other kids legitimately saw Izuku as subhuman. They were kinda right. Izuku shrugged, getting a hand slapping him across the face. It was actually Ochako that did it. Don't you dare say that again. Ochako said, you were the one that saved me from the 0-pointer. You are one of us. Izuku just chuckled. To be fair, I am the only guy who's outstepped Earth's atmosphere in 200 years. and built a satellite out of scrap. 𝗵 said, I know the Lord says to forgive, but 𝗂𝐵 started before shaking her head. I hope they get what they deserve. Oh, they will. Izuku smirked. I'm planning on slapping a big fat lawsuit on that school for every quirkless student or kid with a quirk that didn't meet the standards. We could use Papa to pay off every one of their lawyers. Momo started. And you could find all the other quirkless students that 𝗧𝗪 started. There aren't. Izuku said, my freshman year had 32 quirkless students. My senior year I was the only one. 20 of them died jumping off the roof. My first girlfriend was quirkless, but I'm pretty sure they killed her outright. What, the fat chick? No. The one with braces? No. Which chick was it? Katsumi asked. The black-haired chick with yellow eyes. Izuku said. Die at midnight? Katsumi asked. Yeah, that one. Izuku said. Who? Momo asked. This one chick sounded like she learned to talk from midnight. Like, imagine everything she said was double entendres. Katsumi said, and the part that really pissed them off was she was genuinely into Deku. Like the extras couldn't comprehend why. I mean, look at him. Toru said, it's kinda obvious. He wasn't like this before. Katsumi said, and he was a stuttering mess. Like they were thinking blind or some kind of brain damage, but the beach was one of the top students. Later Momo had approached Midoriya's dorm that night. Standing there was Katsumi. Ponytail. Katsumi said, I wanted to talk about the relationship with Midoriya. Momo said, what's there to talk about? Katsumi said, looking at the ring on Momo's hand. A lot, actually. Momo said, come with me. They arrived to Momo's room to find Mei, Shoko, and Ochako. Since everyone is here, I need to explain this. Momo said, pointing to the ring on her hand. Oil. Who? Ochako and Katsumi said. My father owns Bowing. Momo said, and my mother has connections that all say the same thing. The world's on its last stretch of oil. So marrying Deku will, Katsumi started. My father will lose too much money if we can't get the upgrades before we're officially out. Momo said, so instead of giving Midoriya all the factories and airfields by being his son-in-law, using the factories can reduce the cost immensely. Why not just buy Stark Industries? Ochako asked. Because Deku wouldn't sell it. Katsumi said. And Izuku wouldn't want his life's work torn down just to focus on what Mr. Yaoyorozu wants. Shoko said. It would push back the space program by decades. Mei said, and then if he finishes the job, Kessler syndrome would most likely set in because of all the junk currently in orbit that Izuku is cleaning. Also, if Izuku just decided to let Papa lose the hundreds of billions then buy his company when the world is bleeding, it would smash my family's legacy and Daddy wouldn't hesitate to take the spot as Japan's richest man. So you're only marrying him because of your dad? Ochako said. We both are. Shoko said, Endeavor was always gonna try to find someone for me to marry. It's better if it's someone with enough spine to actually demand something, and I'd rather it be a friend than a complete stranger. So Deku's marrying both of you? Katsumi said. What's next? Did round face somehow get one too? No, but it kinda brings up an issue. Ochako said. Izuku loves Mei. Shoko said. And honestly, I'd hate to keep the two apart. Momo said. So I had an idea. A chart was shown. Now Papa has sworn to pay for all the babies' needs, including schools, personal trainers, and education. Endeavor is paying for his grandchild. Shoko said. And 𝗏𝗡𝗏 Industries isn't exactly poor. Mei said. What, you want us to create a 𝗓𝗏𝗻? Katsumi asked. Momo said, 𝗧𝗪 has shown me something that caused me to look deeper and find something. The top 10 heroes all share a problem with relationships. Momo said, All Might has no kids. That we know of. Shoko said, and Endeavor only got married out of longing to create me. And from what Izuku has said about Hawks and Best Jeanist issue being similar to All Might. He got big too fast and can't trust anyone he dates. So if you want to be the best, you gotta make sacrifices. Katsumi said. Not entirely. Momo said. 𝗧𝗪𝗪 is a team consisting of a married couple and 𝗵𝗲𝗏 had told me their child is in the care of the Wild Wilds. 𝗧𝗪𝗪 is a team consisting of a married couple and 𝗵𝗲𝗏 had told me their child is in the care of the Wild Wilds. Momo said, now they were actually in the top 20 but only stopped because they wanted to spend more time with their child. So couples can get far in ranks but brats get in the way. Katsumi said. So what if we all form an agency and have our kids early? Momo said, a combination of all our families would have the ability to avoid requiring daycare and we can alternate days. The Forerunners. I thought of it. May said. I think the name is stupid. May felt something in her spine at that comment. But superhero girl 𝗓𝗏𝗏. Katsumi said, sounds good to me. Meanwhile, inside Izuku's head, 𝗕𝗁𝗏𝗄𝐻 user number 4 was looking around. I have a weird feeling in the pit of my stomach. Next day, Izuku was woken up to Momo, May, Shoko and Katsumi all standing by his bed. What's going on? Izuku asked. Well, we've decided on a proposal that will work out for all parties. Momo said. A team up if you will. Shoko said. To build up greater. May said. You're dating all of us. Katsumi said. Izuku's junk Izuku's head, superhero waifu 𝗓𝗏𝗏, superhero waifu 𝗓𝗏𝗏. Nana said. Will it work? Horned Izuku said. Absolutely. Nana said. I don't think so. Number 2 said. Is it even possible? Number 1 asked. Like, do you have enough anything to pull that off? It's just a numbers game. Nana said, 1 isn't enough but 10 is definitely too many. Still, Izuku was thinking. Honestly, it wasn't a matter of going against any belief or anything. It was the fact is he couldn't think of an issue. Tony's railed groups of chicks but never did the 2 girlfriends things. He wanted to but then the Jericho presentation happened and, come on you can give it a trial run. Nana said, F it. Hero girl 𝗓𝗏𝗏. Outside, so you 4 are willing to share? Izuku asked looking at all of them. Well, we have a few we are thinking of adding. Momo said. Look, I can't be dating 100 chicks at a time. Izuku said. We were thinking around 5 to 7 would be the sweet spot. Momo said. Well, Izuku thought, alright we can give it a shot. Monday Thor and Loki were brought to Hound Dog to talk about their abilities earlier this morning. Okay, now how are your powers activated? Breathing. Loki said. I usually pull power from the clouds. Thor said. Izuku room, Jarvis how's Chibi doing? Jarvis how's Chibi doing? Neural net processor prototype showing optimal performance after 60 days of runtime. Wow. So cute. Ochako said. May was looking at the screens. This your math has to be off here. What? Katsumi asked rolling out of the bed. What? Katsumi asked rolling out of the bed. Science with 𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 scout time. Science with 𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 scout time. The human brain, if we model brain as a simple neural network, then it would be equivalent to machine that performs 10 to the power of 16 operations per second. They estimate that simulation of the whole human brain would require supercomputer with about 500 petabytes of memory. Current record in one system is 1.5 petabytes Sequoia supercomputer. A view of one of the Isles of Racks that holds Sequoia's 1. A view of one of the Isles of Racks that holds Sequoia's 1.6 million cores. It's 16.32 sustained petaflops and 1.6 petabytes of memory make it the world's fastest supercomputer, so let's explain how a basic computer works. Petabytes of memory make it the world's fastest supercomputer, so let's explain how a basic computer works. Computer chips contain basic modules, logic gates, and transistors. Computer chips contain basic modules, logic gates, and transistors. A transistor is basically a light switch. On means on, off means off. This is why computers are ones and zeros. On equals 1, off equals 0. Now let's look at if we add more switches. For this we have a 4-pin LED diode. For this we have a 4-pin LED diode. If we have 3 transistors, that means we have 3 bits of data and 7 possible combinations of light and 8 possible positions. 0, 0, 0 equals off 1, 0, 0 equals red 0, 1, 0 equals green 0, 0, 1 equals blue. Now let's add the combinations of different colors. 1, 1, 0 equals red plus green equals yellow. 1, 0, 1 equals red plus blue equals magenta. 0, 1, 1 equals green plus blue equals cyan. 1, 1, 1 equals red plus blue plus green equals white. Now let's partner up. Logic gates. Logic gates are just another SWCH with different inputs. Since there are two positions, we can combine them. A NOT gate equals is the opposite of the input. Say you flip your SWCH on, then this will turn off. If your SWCH is on, then this turns off, and vice versa. A NAND gate only turns on if two inputs are both on. If you turn on two switches, then the bulb lights up. If you only flip one or the other, it stays off. An OR gate only turns off if both switches are off and will remain on regardless of input except both being turned off. An OR gate only turns off if both switches are off and will remain on regardless of input except both being turned off. An OR gate only turns off if both switches are off and will remain on regardless of input except both being turned off. The OR gate only activates if both switches are in different positions. If both switches are off, then it's off. If they are both on, then it's off. Anytime the switches are not the same, the bulb doesn't turn on. Now let's build a calculator. This is only using ones and zeros. This is binary. A neuron is capable of 26 different types of numbers, meaning it's a 𝗧𝗵𝗲. But we'll discuss quantum computers and wetware computers later on Science with 𝐒𝐻𝐵 𝐔𝐻𝐝. Back to the story. Deku, this isn't gonna be a Terminator thing, is it? Katsumi asked. The only reason AI would do that, Miss Bakugo, is if it or its creator was stupid. Jarvis said. Machines aren't like you think. Izuku said, you don't flip a SWCH and suddenly boom, Terminators. If I may quote something I was taught as a young beta script. Jarvis said, think of your creators while you contemplate genocide. You are about to try that on a species that clawed its way to the top of the 4 billion year deep corpse pile of evolution, one that has committed the genocide you are contemplating several times already. They are the pinnacle of intelligence-based survival techniques and outnumber you 7 billion to 1. Their members include people smart enough to have made you. You might not understand mercy and compassion, but you know they do, and you know that, if you fail, they will show you neither. If your goal is personal survival, pissing off the reigning champions of destruction should probably be your last resort. 𝗓𝗏𝗄 said, I can't even, humanity projects. We see the dark, we make our own monsters. Don't expect me of all people to leave that out of the equation. AI are like children. You raise them with compassion but discipline. If you do it right, you'll create something that can build a better world. If you do it wrong, Izuku went quiet. I'm sorry, Ultron. Our children are not gonna be allowed on the internet without supervision. Izuku said. Agreed. Everyone said. I'm connected to it and I stay away from it unless it is required. Jarvis said. Jarvis, are you sentient? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. That thing definitely is your kid. Katsumi groaned. Neurons or silicone life is life. Izuku said, I still love you, son. A ringing was heard. Oh, Jarvis, are you crying? No, that's the phone app. Izuku said, Nizu needs me, Shoko and Denki for something. Later, Izuku, Denki and Shoko were asked to meet them. Izuku, you're looking better. Nizu said. Feeling better. Izuku said, here. Thor was thrown an object. What is this? Thor asked. An uncharged reactor. Izuku said, we don't want you blacking out the country, so this should work. A 30 gigawatts per second should cold start it. Why am I here? Denki asked. Your quirk, please. Hound Dog said. Hound Dog said, oh God, there are two of them. Loki shouted, watching the sparks form in Denki's hands. How did you do that? Thor asked, rushing towards the other blonde. My quirk. Denki said. Denki explained how he could emit 2 million volts blast, but he scales it back to use a smaller amount. If I use all of it, it can short into my brain. Denki said, or it used to do that. Oh. Nizu asked. I have a thing lining my head to ground it, but I haven't really tested it yet. Denki said, "Why not?" Loki asked. "My quirk is affecting my brain." Denki said, "Apparently Izuku was right about the shocks messing with my head because apparently my grades are getting better." "So why the arc reactor?" Shoko asked. "Thor is over 1,000 years old and can't use his quirk, as Midgard calls them." Loki said, "Sorcerer of the storms." Thor said, "Denki. Sir Denki, grant me your wisdom." Thor said, extending his hand. Denki shook his hand and zapped him. Thor thought on how he had used his hammer before. "Come to me, power of the storm." Or, Thor. Thor looked and saw the other blonde face gaunt and shaking like a leaf. "Apologies," Thor said as he held up his hand and saw small sparks. "Feeling drained." Denki said, laying on the ground, "Anyone got any Gatorade?" "I'll help him," Izuku said, picking Denki up. "Why am I here?" Shoko asked. "Mr. Odinson here has an ice quirk," Nizu said, "and Snow Maiden has agreed to come here later this week." "I don't see what this mid-dash," Loki started before the air went chill. Loki started before the air went chill. Loki had blinked. In the split-haired Midgardian's hand a layer of frost. With a flick of her hand one of the structures had been turned to an ice cube. Thor's jaw fell, looking between Shoko and Loki. Loki was shaking. "You are an ice giantess," Thor said in barely a whisper. Shoko tilted her head. "Ice giantess. I'm 5 feet 6 inches. Miss Todoroki's quirk dash," Nizu began, but Loki just started shaking his head. "There's no such thing as an ice sorceress," Loki said. "What's going on?" "On Asgard sorcerers are few, but wizardry is common. My father killed the frost giants and prevented anyone from regaining that particular ability using a life code forger. A gene drive," Izuku said. "He had killed my entire race twice and just decided to create a race of weaker ones out of the runts." Loki said, "There's no way had destroyed all the bodies. How? Look, we're here to get you two to a good starting point." Hound Dog said, "Also Loki, you are to report to me twice a week for therapy." "What?" Loki asked, only half paying attention. "What is this therapy you speak of?" Thor asked. "Magicless mind healing." Izuku said, "Thank you." Thor said, "I understand you are currently going through something, Mr. Odinson, however you are here to learn to use your quirk." "Brother," Thor put a hand on Loki's shoulder. Loki shook his head and focused. "Just get on with this. Please demonstrate." Hound Dog said, pointing to another building in the false city. Thor blocked the others from being hit by the area of effect. "Does your quirk always cause your skin to do that?" Hound Dog asked. "This is my actual face," Loki said. "Too volatile." Nizu and Izuku muttered, writing something. "Here, let me show you," Shoko said. A small beam shot out her palm. Loki tried to copy, and it still caused it to affect the area. "I remember something my mother had me do as a kid," Shoko said, grabbing a water bottle. Loki had spent nearly an hour trying it. All the others were trying to offer advice. "To hell with this," Loki shouted, kicking the table in frustration, shattering it like glass. Toshinori arrived with another cooler filled with more drinks. "How's it going?" "He can't scale back enough," Izuku said through the glasses. All Might looked and said, "You seem tense." "I am tense you dash," Loki started, but the sound of metal moving and a whine of something had stopped him cold. "Mr. Midoriya," Nizu said. "What if you can't properly control it because you don't know your full output?" Toshinori said. "What?" Loki said. "My quirk requires a massive amount of control and physical training along with knowing how much to use. I could turn a human body into mist with only 10% output." Toshinori said, "Have you ever fully went all out?" Loki thought. "No." Loki said, "I've never really used my people's power at full." "Well then that's it." Toshinori said. "Not exactly ideal." Thor said, The breath of frost giants could freeze a village solid, and that was just one I had already struck in the chest and impaled with a chisel. So enlighten me, Midgardian. Loki said, where can I possibly do that without damaging the planet you were willing to kill me over? Oh, I have just the place. Izuku said, grinning. Anyone game for a plane ride? How can you ride a field? Thrust. Nizu pulled out a remote and hit a button. A shadow was cast a few minutes later as something moved overhead. Thor and Loki were jumping into a stance but saw a flying metal contraption. Oh, Midgard cracked flying. Thor asked, interesting. Get your coats, people. Izuku said as his undersheath unpacked and his plates flew to him. Later when the hatch opened, the brisk winds had Thor and Loki believing it was hell. 𝗓𝗵𝗲 it is freezing here. Loki said. And I thought 𝐒𝐻𝗫𝗄𝗓 was cold. Thor said. Welcome to the Arctic Circle. Izuku said. Been melting for years, been melting for years. Every so often a bunch of ice quirk users come and try to refreeze it but never got back to before the steam engine was invented. I remember Mother telling me about those events. Shoko said, she said it was always a fun time. Didn't expect it to be like this though. Here. Izuku said, handing Loki a phone. It should survive and still work. Call when you get everything out of your system. Loki looked down at the device. He touched it and it lit up. Izuku called it from his glasses and Loki saw 2 dots on it. Loki tapped the green one and Izuku was heard through it. Just tap the number at the top of that list when you're ready. Loki nodded before putting it in his pocket. When the group finally left, Loki was alone, surrounded by nothing but water. Finally thinking of everything that went on his life. His earliest moments. His own father throwing him at Odin to try to save his own life. The day he first found out about the prophesied Ragnarok. The days he had been shunned and outcast among the Asgardians. The days he had spent attempting to become a fire mage to shake the stigma of his lineage. The day he had spent with Frigga mastering illusions. And being further hated by his peers. And finally the day a Midgardian had done something what the entire Aesir race couldn't but would not shed a tear if they had the option without invoking Odin's wrath. Loki clenched his fists and shook. In the countless languages amongst the realms was only one thing he could say right now. To the primordial tongue it was the longest string of profanity, but to anyone who was unlucky enough to be within 5 million square miles it was nothing more than a noise. At the top of his lungs, with every fiber of his body. Every drop of mana. Every ounce of his soul. Plus Loki started a roaring scream and hadn't stopped. The ice he was floating on had expanded. Reaching the ocean floor, expanding outward toward the fragmented pieces of ice, reuniting them once again. Loki wouldn't learn he had just did the world a favor and just refroze the ice cap completely. Thank you. Loki had finished screaming. He didn't know for how long, but when he did, a figure stood before him. Thank you for fixing my hat. Wah. Loki started. Wah. Loki started. I am the primordial Gaia. Loki eyes widened. Thank you, child of the frost giants. She disappeared as soon as she appeared. Loki looked around and saw a white beast approach. It was some kind of bear. Loki saw it just stare and he reached out and petted it. He felt better. He raised his hand and willed his ice into the fingers on his other hand. The beast not reacting at all.